My husband insisted on hiking in the sweltering heat, but this time I didn't join him. I just bought him accident insurance beforehand and stayed home alone enjoying the air conditioning. In my past life, I couldn't resist his persistent pleading and went hiking with him. Then suddenly, a massive boulder came tumbling down the mountainside. I pushed him out of the way with all my strength to save him, but I ended up being crushed by a boulder. Suffering severe abdominal injuries and permanent disability in one leg, he promised verbally to repay me for saving his life and take care of me forever, yet he immediately contacted a lawyer to ask how he could get me to return his $80,000 betrothal gift. He even had the audacity to claim sole ownership of the fruit store we opened together. His excuse was that my abdominal injury left me infertile, making me unable to carry on his family line. When I confronted him, he even denied that I had saved his life. He also blamed me for taking him hiking, saying the accident was entirely my fault. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn to the day he suggested we go hiking. Gu Lin held onto my arm and gave it a gentle shake. Honey, let's just go hiking this once. I've heard the mountain offers breathtaking views with clouds and mist swirling amidst radiant sunsets. I looked down at my right leg. That hideous scar had vanished. The dull ache in my stomach was gone too. Gu Lin was still alive, with both legs intact. He never managed to persuade me, but when I told him he could go hiking alone, his face lit up with disbelief and joy. Then he planted a kiss right on my forehead. Thanks, honey, you're the best, I scoffed, but my heart was a tangled mess of emotions. I'd secretly taken out a deluxe premium accident insurance policy on him, just waiting for the big payout to roll in my previous life. Intoxicated with newlywed bliss, I agreed to go out with Gu Lin despite the scorching heat. Halfway up the mountain, massive boulders suddenly came tumbling down the slopes. It happened so abruptly there was no time to react. At that critical moment, I shoved Gu Lin out of harm's way without regard for my own safety. The accident left me with severe abdominal injuries and robbed me of my ability to bear children. My right leg was crushed by a boulder, leaving me permanently disabled. Gu Lin escaped mostly unscathed, sustaining only minor scratches on his arm. At first, he held my broken body in his arms and wept with genuine anguish. He even made a vow, promising to take good care of me for the rest of his life, and swore he would never leave me even if I were bedridden forever. I believed him at first, until I realized his actions didn't match his words. During my hospital stay, the only money he contributed was 20,000 yuan when he helped me check in. The remaining medical expenses, over 200,000 yuan, were all paid from my parents' savings. He's been showing up less and less since I was hospitalized. Every time I call, he complains about his heavy workload and blames me for making him work overtime every day. I was feeling guilty until I received a private message from a concerned netizen. It was a clip from a live stream. Gu Lin made an appearance in a popular lawyer's live stream. He was asking the lawyer how to force me to return the 80,000 yuan betrothal gift, and how he could take sole ownership of the fruit store we opened together. I was shaking with rage, my blood running cold. I immediately forwarded the video to Gu Lin and demanded an explanation. Not only did he show no remorse, but he also turned the tables on me. If you hadn't insisted on going on that trip, would any of this have happened? You brought this misfortune upon yourself. I had nothing to do with it. Are you trying to drag me down for the rest of my life? I was so furious I nearly passed out. My mother, heartbroken for me, went to confront them and demand justice on my behalf, but my mother-in-law turned around and accused me of being a barren hen. My mother was so furious she slapped her, and she immediately called the police, who arrested my mom and took her to the station. Gu Lin called me again, and as soon as I answered, he started screaming hysterically, "Mo Shui, have you no shame at all? How dare you send your mother to my house to insult mine? You've made her so upset she's fallen ill. If you know what's good for you, you'll come with me to get divorced today and leave with nothing. Otherwise, don't blame me for taking your mother to court," I said with a cold laugh. "Fine, come pick me up at my place, let's go get divorced. I've endured over a year of this living hell, and I've had enough. Since he wants a divorce, I'll grant him his wish. I don't want anything. I just want him dead." He opened the door and stepped inside to find the room completely empty. Hidden behind the door, I gripped one end of my cane and swung it hard at the back of his head, just in case. I had drilled this move hundreds of times. If all else failed, I could just throw my full weight at him and knock him down. Fortunately, I succeeded on the first try. He suddenly collapsed face first onto the ground, losing consciousness. I calmly took out the prepared boning knife. I furiously hacked at his thigh. I've been carrying things with my arms every single day this past year. My biceps have grown increasingly powerful. With just a few fierce chops, I severed his entire right leg. As blood splattered across my lips, I smiled demurely. Gu Lin jolted awake from excruciating pain, only to find his hands bound tightly behind his back. I deliberately held his severed thigh before his eyes. Swaying it back and forth, he let out a piercing scream, his face drained of color, and begged for mercy incessantly. Shui, I was wrong, let me go, and we can live peacefully from now on. Alright, you've already taken one of my legs, we're even now. I lifted his chin with my hand and pointed the tip of the blade toward his crotch. He sneered and said, how is that fair? You can still have children, honey. If we were in the same situation, would you still look down on me then? He flushed with anger and humiliation. Mo Shuqing, you lunatic, if you dare lay a hand on me, you'll die a gruesome death. Without a word, I swung my blade and castrated him. Too. He let out a blood-curdling scream. With a sudden surge of strength from nowhere, he butted me aside. He snapped the ropes, snatched his severed manhood, and hopped away on one foot, leaning on my crutch. I hobbled after him, my hand clenched the still-dripping knife. The moment the door opened, my mother-in-law saw the terrible state her son was in. Heartbroken, she started screaming at me, you heartless jinx. You useless old hen that can't even lay an egg, look what you've done to my precious boy, my poor unfortunate child. I didn't talk back, just silently clenched my jaw and prepared to gather strength. Gu Lin saw his mother and thought he had found his savior. He desperately hopped towards his mother. I can't be bothered to chase after him anymore. Swinging my arm in a wide arc, I aimed the blade straight at his heart. I hurled it with all my might. The sharp boning knife pierced clean through his heart. Gu Lin collapsed before his mother's eyes, his gaze frozen in eternal anguish. The old woman watched in horror as I stabbed her son to death. The shock drove her completely insane. I walked up to the rooftop and leaped into the void, ended my own painful and absurd life. To my surprise, that leap actually gave me a second chance at life. In my previous life, I was left permanently disabled after going hiking with Gu Lin, and while I was hospitalized, he even went on a blind date. He's shirking his responsibility to care for me and trying to leave me with nothing in the divorce. It seems the roles in our life script are about to be reversed this time around. Gu Lin, I'm curious to see how you'll handle it when the shoe is on the other foot. I made a point of reminding Gu Lin to leave early in the morning. Just like in his previous life, Gu Lin left the house promptly at 7 a.m. to go hiking. I went back to sleep for a while longer. I slept until a little after 9. Suddenly, someone started banging on the door like there was no tomorrow. I checked my phone and saw Gu Lin had called me over a dozen times and sent countless messages. I didn't rush to open the door. Instead, I tapped on the first voice message. Gu Lin's panicked plea for help came through. Honey, I've had an accident on the mountain. Get someone to rescue me, quick. Seriously, shouldn't you call 911 for emergencies? What good would telling me do? The knocking continued. I swung the door open impatiently. I found myself staring straight into my mother-in-law's eyes, blazing crimson with rage. Your husband could have been crushed to death by falling rocks, and here you are lounging around at home, fast asleep. With that, she lunged at me, trying to strike. I had anticipated her move and swiftly dodged out of the way. She stumbled and slammed face first into the iron gate, sending blood gushing from her nose. Oh my God, Mom, why did you wait so long to tell me about Gu Lin's accident? Take me to the hospital now. She wanted to go inside to find something to wipe her nosebleed, but I yanked her away before she could. He had to cover his nose with one hand while giving me directions the whole way, too busy to bother me any further. Gu Lin's injuries weren't as serious as I had anticipated. Just like in my previous life, loss of reproductive function, plus a broken right leg. After the surgery, the doctor said to me with grave concern, the patient's injuries are quite severe, so we need to be very mindful of our approach when communicating. Try to avoid bringing up topics that might be sensitive for the patient. It's not conducive to the recovery of the injury. I nodded in agreement again and again, following the doctor's instructions. She immediately approached Gu Lin with concern upon entering the ward and asked, Darling, I heard the rocks hit your area too, so, can we still have children in the future? You know how much my mom has been wanting a granddaughter. If she finds out you can't have children anymore, she'll definitely cause a scene at the hospital. In my previous life, I had just gotten out of surgery when my mother-in-law found out I couldn't have children. She immediately started screaming for Gu Lin to divorce me. She even called me a barren hen. Gu Lin just stood there silently, letting his mother cause a scene in the hospital room. I was so furious that I tore my stitches and had to stay in the hospital for another 2 weeks. While I was severely injured, he went behind my back and agreed to the blind date his mother arranged for him. Now the tables have turned. Gu Lin was livid with rage because of me. My mother-in-law overheard my words from the side. A surge of rage shot through me. She jabbed a finger at my face and screamed, "You brazen little hussy, my son isn't even cold in his grave, and you're already scheming for that. Have you no shame at all?" I wasn't the least bit angry, just stood my ground and reasoned, "Mom, how is having a baby something to be ashamed of? We both wanted this. Besides, you were an unplanned child yourself, when you conceived my husband with my father-in-law." Was Grandma Gu Lin there pushing his hips back and forth? Her eyes widened in disbelief. She fled with her face flushed crimson. My gaze shifted to Gu Lin. He was now completely wrapped in bandages, unable to move a muscle. I deliberately reached for his belt. "Let me see how badly you're hurt, honey." I reluctantly sat up, accidentally pulling at the wound. Blood was seeping through the white bandage on my thigh. I blinked, covered my mouth, and put on an innocent expression. "Oh no, it's bleeding. I'll get a doctor for you." I pressed the call button by the bed and stepped out of the hospital room. Sitting on the bench in the hallway, I started calling for backup. After getting our stories straight with my mom, she rushed to the hospital room in a panic. As soon as she saw her coming, my mother-in-law rushed over to my mom to tattle. "My dear-in-law, your daughter Shuyi has gone completely wild." The moment Gu Lin was hospitalized, she started claiming my son is infertile. Now she's making a scene demanding a divorce. "If you don't rein her in now, she'll be out cuckolding my son by tomorrow." But instead of scolding me as my mother had expected, she rolled up her sleeves and started making loud, sarcastic remarks outside the hospital room. "I heard your son's manhood got snapped in two. What's the difference between an infertile man and a eunuch from the Qing dynasty anyway? Looking like a wimp was bad enough, and now he's just a limp noodle too. My daughter is supposed to give me granddaughters someday. How could she be tied down to a sterile mule who can't even sire offspring? If it were up to me, I'd have them file for divorce today, so he won't hold my daughter back." My mother-in-law flushed and then went pale. She was about to retort, then it hit her. Her son was now damaged goods. I had no ground to stand on to argue with my mom, so I had to swallow my pride and bite the bullet. I forced a smile that looked more like a grimace and said to my mom, "We really shouldn't be making decisions for the young couple, dear-in-laws. Besides, they're still newlyweds. We're perfectly happy together. How could we possibly get divorced now?" Then she turned to me and said, "Shuqing, I spoke without thinking just now. Please don't take it to heart. I'm giving you this bracelet. Both of you, listen to your mother. Live well together from now on." She slipped the solid gold bracelet from her wrist onto mine. Never thought something I yearned for so desperately in my past life would come to me so effortlessly in this one. People can be so pathetic. Before I even married into the family, Gu Lin's mother had boasted she would pass down her gold bracelet to her daughter-in-law on the wedding day, but even after Gu Lin and I got married, she never gave me that bracelet. At first I thought she'd just forgotten in the bustle, so I quietly reminded her during the wedding, but she seized on it like she'd caught me red-handed, and started loudly berating me in front of all the guests. She's not even married into the family yet, and already she's eyeing her mother-in-law's gold bracelet. "Gu Lin, is this the fine wife you chose to marry?" The guests were whispering about me, and the atmosphere became incredibly awkward. That embarrassing incident has been eating away at me ever since. It even made me start doubting myself. I wondered if I'd somehow offended her as a daughter-in-law, for her to go out of her way to embarrass me in public, but real life taught me otherwise. There's nothing wrong with me, she's just a nasty piece of work. I listed that bracelet for sale online, ended up pocketing over 10 grand for free. I immediately filed a claim with the insurance company and got the accident certified as soon as possible. Gu Lin's case qualifies as accidental disability. I'm covered by the Deluxe Supreme Plan, which has very high coverage. Based on their compensation standards, I should receive at least 1 million in payout. With the over 10,000 yuan I got from selling the bracelet, I booked a luxury cruise trip for my parents. In my past life, my parents also suffered greatly because of that terrible marriage. I ended my own life abruptly before I could give them the comfortable life they deserved. Looking back, my heart is filled with regret. Even if I didn't spend the money from selling the gold bracelet, it would still become marital property. Let my parents enjoy themselves to the fullest. 4. I didn't go with them, because there are more important matters awaiting me. I will not only reclaim everything that rightfully belongs to me, But also make Gu Lin leave with nothing but the clothes on his back, give them a taste of their own medicine, let him experience the pain and despair I went through during my hospital stay. While I was running around managing the fruit shop, my mother-in-law kept calling to hurry me along. Your husband is in the hospital, and you're still fussing over that fruit shop, hurry up and take care of him. I kept making excuses until Gu Lin called, Mo Shui. Must you wait until I'm dead to come collect my corpse? We're legally married, don't you understand you have an obligation to care for me? My mother's not getting any younger. What kind of son makes his elderly mother pull all-nighters at the hospital every single day? Men always have this arrogant delusion of being in control. Even now, lying half-crippled in a hospital bed, he still had the nerve to boss me around. If I had possessed even half his assertiveness in my past life, I probably wouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state. I pretended to be vulnerable, softening my tone. Sorry, honey, business at our fruit store has been booming lately. I simply can't get away. We can't possibly have mom come do all this manual labor. Don't worry, I've arranged for a caregiver to assist you. Now she and mom can take turns looking after you. I don't want any caregiver. Are you even listening to me? He's unbearably loud. I hung up before he could finish. I'm not as stingy as Gu Lin. In my past life, he wanted me to leave with nothing, so he opted for a free legal consultation. I have a high school classmate who works at a prestigious law firm in Lu City. He specializes in divorce cases. Even though we haven't seen each other for years and have grown distant, she was still very warm when receiving me. At its core, social interactions among adults are essentially exchanges of interests and values. We have a classmate group chat where she often shares divorce cases that I used to consider utterly sensational. Now that it's my turn to recount my past life experiences, it doesn't even feel melodramatic anymore. I'm even confident I could land the front page headline on their official account. After stepping into her office, she had her assistant pour me a cup of hot tea. Let me get straight to the point. My husband has become disabled. How can I make him leave with nothing? This lawyer has clearly seen it all. Faced with my overly blunt and seemingly amoral opening, she didn't show much surprise. She simply asked me to provide detailed information about my marital and financial status. After I explained the specifics, she fell silent for a moment. After a moment's thought, she said to me with an apologetic smile, Shui, given your circumstances, this divorce case might be difficult to win. Your husband is disabled, which makes him the vulnerable party in this situation, and was not at fault in the marriage. Even if you win the case, the most you can get is a divorce. But when it comes to property division, you're at a disadvantage. The court might even award more to your husband. So you're saying we have to make him slip up on his own. So you're saying I could walk away with nothing. Is that it? No, it's not necessarily about wrongdoing. The key is to demonstrate that your marital relationship has irretrievably broken down. My advice would be to start by living separately from your husband. However, the separation period must last a full year. During this time, there should be no frequent emotional communication, and any interaction should reflect the breakdown of the relationship. I shook my head helplessly. We can't drag this out for so long. This is taking too long. Is there any way to speed this up? Attorney Liu handed me a business card. I'm afraid not, unless both parties are willing to proceed with the divorce. Otherwise, this situation just can't be rushed. This is my friend's business card. You could try reaching out to her. Under my puzzled gaze, she handed me a business card belonging to the director of a matchmaking agency. Another meaningful glance was cast my way. It suddenly dawned on me, since the conventional approach wasn't working, I had to find an alternative path. I went to that matchmaking agency. After explaining my purpose to the person in charge, things quickly took a turn for the better. Hong Jia, the manager, placed a stack of documents in front of me. She sprawled her arms boldly over the armchair and remarked in a tone of disbelief, "First time I've seen a wife shopping for a mistress for her own husband. You're quite the character." I gave a wry smile and quickly zeroed in on a woman from that pile of documents. According to Sister Hong, this woman is a notorious serial homewrecker. He's a premium member of our institution. She's dead set on landing a wealthy bachelor. Your husband needs some serious image polishing, otherwise, he won't even catch her eye. 5. The woman in the photo had shoulder-length wavy hair styled with a chic French fringe. Her makeup was impeccably applied yet soft in its effect. A gentle, watery smile graced her lips, with a faint dimple gracing her right cheek. She was the living image of Gu Lin's dream lover. After jotting down her number, I immediately dialed it. The woman's name was Wu Yen. 27, unmarried, and unemployed, I arranged to meet her at the coffee shop downstairs from the hospital. She was wearing a pink bubble-sleeved bodycon dress and white stiletto heels. She had a gentle and sweet appearance. She was drenched in a cloying, cheap perfume. The fragrance clung to every strand of her hair. Her hips swayed gently as she walked, drawing sidelong glances from many customers. Even I found myself a little mesmerized, let alone the men, after she settled in. I presented her with the luxury handbag I had meticulously prepared. You can tell those old guys never gave her anything decent, and here she was, over the moon just for getting a basic handbag. She grabbed my hand right away, all excited. "You're the best, sis. I'm not usually into women, but for you I'd be willing to explore my sexuality." I gasped and quickly pulled my hand back, showed her a photo of Gu Lin. "Make this man fall for you within a month. The kind that makes him willing to divorce and leave with nothing for you. After it's done, you'll get 100 grand. Her smile suddenly vanished. Sitting up straight, she frowned and said, "He's too ugly, this'll cost extra." We spoke in unison. I yelled, 150,000, her, 110,000, she said, "Deal, 150,000 it is." I replied, "Alright, if you can deliver. I'll transfer the 150K directly to your account," beaming with joy. She patted her chest and assured me, "Don't worry, consider it done." Her demeanor was so naive and clueless, just like a college student. "He's freaking out." I was genuinely a bit uneasy about it, but after I brought her to the hospital, she demonstrated with her actions just how deeply she understood men. I arranged for Wu Yan to enter Gu Lin's hospital room as his caregiver. She stood behind me. Before even seeing who it was, Gu Lin started yelling for them to get out upon hearing I'd brought a caregiver. He kept shouting for them to leave immediately, his face flushed crimson with agitation. "Mo Shui, how dare you brush me off like this? I'm confined to bed and can't move freely. What if the caregiver decides to hit me out of spite? I don't care. I don't want any damn caretaker. You have to stay and take care of me yourself. Get her out of here." I quietly stepped aside and nudged Wu Yan toward the hospital bed. She appeared in Gu Lin's sight, wiping her tears with such a pitiable look that it tugged at his heartstrings. The clamorous sounds of resistance around him abruptly ceased. Wu Yan suddenly knelt by the hospital bed, pleading in a voice choked with tears, "Please, I beg you, let me stay and take care of him. I'm available 247 and I would never lay a hand on anyone. My family member has a serious illness requiring special medication, and I'm also responsible for my younger brother's tuition fees. It was really hard for me to land this job. Please, I'm begging you to let me stay." Gu Lin's expression tightened, his heart aching as he reached out to help the poor girl kneeling on the ground. The previous hostility had completely dissipated. I deliberately played hard to get, saying in a nonchalant tone, "I only agreed to let her work as a caregiver because I felt sorry for this young lady. Since you won't have her, I'll have to let her go." With that, I took Wu Yan by the arm and stood up to leave, but Wu Yan stubbornly refused to get up. She clung to Gu Lin's leg, weeping uncontrollably. "The situation is getting out of hand." Only then did Gu Lin speak up with feigned reluctance. Alright, I'll take it. Is that good enough? You can stay to take care of me, but you can't just disappear every day. You need to come by every day to keep an eye on her." I murmured in agreement. From then on, I made a daily trip to the hospital after work each evening. My purpose wasn't to visit Gu Lin, but to have Wu Yan update me on the progress. On her first day at work, Wu Yan was still wearing her white work uniform. The overly loose long sleeves and pants did nothing to show off her figure. That evening, as she was pouring hot water for Gu Lin from the thermos, the lid wasn't screwed on tight, and it suddenly fell off. 6. Scalding water splashed onto her thigh. She gasped in pain. Gu Lin consequently exempted her from the uniform requirement. When she reported the incident to me, I couldn't help but sigh with emotion. "You don't have to be so hard on yourself. I'm not covering your medical bills, you know." But she just pulled up her pant leg and gave me a radiant smile. "See, it's just makeup I applied. The bottle is filled with warm water, not hot at all." I did that to establish physical contact with him as soon as possible. Physical closeness can quickly bridge emotional distance. Sure enough, he initially resisted when I tried to change his bandages. The issue was resolved overnight. I clapped my hands and gave her a thumbs up. "You're amazing." The relationship between Gu Lin and Wu Yan was growing closer at a pace I could clearly sense. This was evident from how long I stayed with him during my hospital visits. It was like seeing the whole leopard through a single spot, revealing the bigger picture. During the first week, every time I visited the hospital, Gu Lin would pour out his grievances to me. It's not about complaining how awful the hospital food is, it's about lamenting how the illness is tormenting me beyond endurance. Every single time, they pour their heart out to me late into the night, just like a suckling infant. They tell me every little detail. I'm swamped with work at the fruit shop every day, with no energy left to listen to his complaints, though I sat by his bedside. Not a single word of his grumbling reached my ears. My thoughts drifted away with the wild geese passing by outside the window, pondering how to spend the $1.5 million insurance payout, and how to cook up some pretext to transfer the fruit shop into my name. Gu Lin noticed I hadn't responded for a while. He shook my shoulder gently. Honey, are you even listening to me? That bastard of a supervisor is trying to force me to resign because I was hospitalized. He said if I don't show up for work soon, he'll have the company fire me. I echoed his words half-heartedly. Getting fired sounds great, just perfect. My aloofness wounded his fragile pride. In a fit of rage, he shoved me away. I stumbled and fell to my knees. My forehead met Wu Yan's shoes as she entered the ward. A sharp pain shot through my knee. I lifted the hem of my skirt to look. 2 red marks stood out starkly against my pale skin. In a fit of anger, I raised my hand, swinging my arms. I struck him with both hands in rapid succession. I clawed frantically at Gu Lin's face. He held in pain, but lacked the strength to push me away. His lower body was swathed in bandages, the wounds not yet fully healed. Any sudden movement could cause it to tear. After leaving over a dozen bloody claw marks on Gu Lin's face, I shot Wu Yan a meaningful glance. She immediately understood and rushed over to pull me away. Gu Lin looked like a plucked sick chicken, his eyes wide with sheer terror when he looked at me. After that, I spent less and less time at the hospital. My visits became less frequent. 2 weeks later, I dropped by while running errands and caught a glimpse through the glass outside the ward. Gu Lin pulled Wu Yan into his arms as she was changing his bandages. He then wrapped an arm around her neck and planted a kiss on her cheek. Seeing she didn't resist, he grew even bolder. His hand began creeping beneath her clothes. I quietly took a few photos to preserve the evidence. Then I pretended not to have seen anything and quickly walked away from the hospital room door. By the time I got home, Wu Yan sent me an update on the new message. I'm off to bed. I replied with got it. She added, sis, he's been badmouthing you a lot lately. Listening to him makes me want to knock some sense into him. I didn't understand before why you were being so cold-hearted. Now I'm starting to get it. This guy is petty, selfish, and completely irresponsible. I reminded her, don't worry about defending me. Just focus on maintaining your own image. Gu Lin is no fool. He's more calculating than anyone. This week, just keep him happy. Be completely accommodating in every way. When he scolds me, you join in. You need to act like the jealous mistress resenting the wife. A week later, tell him you're pregnant. Use that to pressure him into marrying you, or threaten to terminate the pregnancy. The doctor said he's infertile. What he wants most now is a child. Got it. Wu Yan replied, okay, sis. This lifetime, you can count on me. We're the real deal. A week flew by in the blink of an eye. Wu Yan was steadily gaining more importance in Gu Lin's heart. No matter what I tried to discuss with him, he'd always steer the conversation back to Wu Yan. She even asked for a raise herself. Honey, how much are you paying Yan per month? I feel this young lady is working far too hard. She's been taking care of me day and night, constantly running around. 7. You should have done these things yourself. She really bailed you out. You'd better treat her right. I let out a wry laugh. I thought to myself, she waits on you hand and foot all day, and still has to share your bed at night, working like a beast of burden and being treated like livestock. It's truly no easy life, but he shouldn't feel guilty toward Wu Yan either, because Wu Yan's 150,000 monthly salary is entirely deducted from his own assets. I've had lawyers handle the property division for the fruit shop. I sold the shop at a low price to a trusted friend, claiming it was on the verge of closure due to poor management. Then, after giving it a makeover, my parents bought it back. My friend was put in charge as the nominal operator. I secretly reimbursed Gu Lin with half of the amount, pretending it was his share of the revenue. His share of the estate was entirely depleted by hospital bills and caregiver fees. Now there's barely anything left. After all preparations were in place, Wu Yan and I devised an elaborate plan to stage a dramatic confrontation scene. The night before the storm arrived, I bought a 2-line pregnancy test online in advance. I handed it to Wu Yan. I patiently instructed, today is the day Gu Lin is discharged from the hospital. It's also the day we plan to close the net. You must give a performance of a lifetime. Ideally, make such a public scene that he has no choice but to marry you. If he refuses, make sure to bring the dispute to me, that way I'll have leverage over him, and winning the divorce case will be a sure thing." She gave a solemn nod. When everything was in place, Wu Yan and I arrived at the hospital one right after the other. Before heading out, I made sure to text Gu Lin. I told him I'd pick him up from the hospital, but he never got back to me. I bet Wu Yan went to his hospital room to confront him. His messages couldn't hide the guilt between the lines. "Honey, a friend of mine is in town on business. He heard I was hospitalized and insisted on visiting me. I might be discharged a few hours later than expected. Maybe don't come after all. I'll just grab a cab home later." I replied with a simple okay. Then I casually made my way into the inpatient ward, headed to room 405 where Gu Lin was staying. Inside the hospital room, Wu Yan was sitting in Gu Lin's lap, gently stroking her lower abdomen. In a blissful, honeyed voice, she asked, "Sweetheart, what do you think we should name our baby?" Gu Lin wrapped his arms around her, covering her face with tender kisses. Tone, affectionate, "Whatever you say. I never thought I'd have a child of my own in this lifetime. I told you that doctor misdiagnosed me. It was just a bump from a stone. Not like it shattered anything. There's no way I couldn't have children." Wu Yan happily turned and wrapped her arms around him, then her expression shifted to one of concern. "So when are you and Shui getting divorced? The baby's getting further along now. I refuse to be the laughing stock at my own wedding." Waddling down the aisle with a baby bump, Gu Lin was currently drunk on love. He'd agree to whatever demand Wu Yan made without a second thought. "We're getting divorced the moment we get back. I've had it with that old hag. She gives me the silent treatment every day and even dares to lay hands on me. Back in the day, a vicious woman like her would have been drowned in a pig cage." Wu Yan covered his mouth and cooed in mock reproach. "Knock on wood, you're about to be a father. Watch your language and build some good karma for the baby. Sister Shui has always been really kind to me. If it weren't for her introducing us, we never would have ended up together. You're the one who cheated first. Let's make this a peaceful divorce when the time comes. We're building good karma for our child." Gu Lin placed his hand on Wu Yan's lower abdomen. "All right, I'll follow your lead. I can't be bothered to argue with that shrew. Worst case, we'll just give her a bigger cut to keep her from causing trouble." The two of them were cuddled up in their own little world. I pushed the door open and walked in. "I demand to know, how exactly have I made your life difficult, you, Mr. Gu? I've been running around tirelessly to find people to take care of you and manage your household affairs, and you repay me by sneaking around behind my back, having an affair with the very caregiver I hired for you. Is this how you repay me?" Gu Lin was taken aback by these words, his face turning deathly pale. He stammered for a long time, unable to find the words to refute. Wu Yan also dramatically gaped, fully immersed in the experience of being caught in the act. "I'm currently occupying the moral high ground. Even if I beat Gu Lin to a pulp, he wouldn't dare fight back, but I chose not to resort to such undignified methods. Instead, I called in both sets of parents. When my parents rushed in, I sat slumped on the floor, speechless and weeping helplessly. My hair was a tangled mess, perfectly embodying the image of a disheveled, discarded wife. Seeing this, my father pulled out his 7 Wolves belt and started lashing out at Gu Lin with all his might. My mother then started pulling his hair. Under the mixed doubles assault, Gu Lin simply threw caution to the wind. He completely abandoned his last shreds of shame and moral principles. With unjustified confidence, he declared, "It's Mo Shui's fault that I cheated. She shouldn't have been so lazy and hired such a pretty caregiver to tempt me. It was just one affair. What's the big deal? My colleagues even pay for prostitutes." I asked in confusion. "When it comes to being the worst, Gu Lin has always been a natural." After my mother-in-law rushed over and heard Gu Lin's outrageous remarks, she even snatched the belt from my father to teach Gu Lin a lesson. But upon hearing that Wu Yan was carrying Gu Lin's child, her attitude did a complete about-face. "It's true my son was wrong to have an affair. Since things have come to this, I think it's best they get divorced. That way no one has to put up with anyone." All she cared about was carrying on the family line. As for who would bear the children, she couldn't care less. They immediately hit it off. The taxi Gu Lin hailed took the whole family straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau entrance. Since both parties agreed to the divorce, I can't believe I forgot about the damn mandatory cooling-off period. Wu Yan urged Gu Lin impatiently. "I don't care. I'm moving into your house today. I've been waiting for this day for far too long. I prepared divorce papers for both of you. Once you've reached an agreement, either party can file for divorce. This prevents any back-and-forth disputes, and we don't have to wait 30 days. Wu Yan truly lived up to her professional standards. She actually thought of this step before I did. The property division above is clearly stated all assets are to be split 50-50, Gu Lin, and I signed the papers right then and there. I filed for divorce with the court, and Gu Lin responded to the lawsuit. On the day of the hearing, the judge first asked us to try to work things out between ourselves. Both parties unanimously refused. Gu Lin was dumbstruck when the court session began. I presented evidence of his domestic violence, proof of extramarital affairs, and medical documentation confirming his infertility. Then I tore up the signed prenuptial agreement right in the courtroom. I demanded he leave with nothing but the clothes on his back. I came fully prepared for battle, while Gu Lin was caught completely off guard. He could only produce a disability certificate in a desperate bid for the judge's sympathy. In the end, I successfully obtained a divorce through litigation. However, out of humanitarian considerations, the court still didn't strip Gu Lin of all his assets. The ruling only mandated a 60-40 split of all marital property. I got 60%, he got 40%. 8. Gu Lin was deeply dissatisfied with the verdict and immediately filed an appeal in court. He did file an appeal, but it was rejected by the local court. The original verdict from the first trial was upheld. When Gu Lin called me, Wu Yan was shrilly mocking him. Take a look at yourself. How dare you expect me to have your child? You can't even afford underwear right now. Why should I keep this mistake? Let's break up. Don't come bothering me anymore. My brother's a karate champion. If you mess with me, he'll punch you straight into the ground. A heavy door slam echoed from the other side. I didn't want to waste any more words on Gu Lin, so I hung up the phone. He's probably slumped on the living room sofa right now, head in his hands, crying in regret. Too bad this isn't even his lowest point yet. 2 weeks later, when Gu Lin was paying for instant noodles at the supermarket, I was surprised to find my account balance was running low. I was lounging in a glass villa in the Maldives, soaking up the sun, savoring the newly purchased white wine. When Gu Lin's call came through, he screamed at me hysterically, "Mo Shui, where has all my money gone? We agreed on a 60-40 split. Are you trying to pocket all of it?" I stared at the over 3 million yuan balance in my newly opened bank card, plus the fruit shop's daily takings of over 5,000, replied smugly, "What are you talking about, ex-husband? Your hospital stay cost over 500,000 in total. We even sold the fruit shop to pay for your medical treatment. I've already let you live in my house. What more could you possibly want?" He exclaimed in disbelief. "But my hospital stay only cost a little over 300,000, didn't it? Where did this 500,000 in spending come from? So you did sneakily take over 100,000 extra. Give me back my money now." I picked at my fingers and spoke coldly. "Do you think nursing care comes for free? Do you think your daily luxury tonics like abalone and bird's nest cost nothing? Go ahead and sue me if you dare. Let's see who wins in court." Gu Lin was completely unaware that I had purchased insurance for him. I've kept screenshots as evidence for all documented expenses. I guarantee he won't find a single thing that's not above board. Hiring the caregiver cost 150,000, but every penny was spent on his care. I didn't gain the slightest personal benefit from any of this. Besides, he couldn't even afford the legal fees to sue me. I cut off all my contact information. I moved with my parents to start fresh in a new city. When Gu Lin showed up at my parents' house with a knife, leaning on his crutch, the security camera outside the door caught him on tape. I immediately called the police and had him put behind bars to cool off for a few days. While he was stuck in jail, miserably eating prison food, I was out on a boat with my parents, experiencing the thrill of catching Atlantic bluefin tuna, all regrets and shadows left by past lives, healed by the sea breeze and sunlight, swept away completely. The end. Story 2. After enduring 20 years of a marriage akin to widowhood, I was unexpectedly given a second chance at life. I found myself reborn at the moment I was in the midst of divorcing Xiaoxing. The reason for our divorce was that he had secretly hired his ex-girlfriend, Jiang Mengyao, into our company and even promoted her to the position of financial director. This led to the most intense argument we had ever had. After he stormed out, I immediately went to the hospital and terminated my 3-month-old pregnancy. When I saw the calendar on the wall and realized I had returned to the year 1988, I left the bedroom with my head throbbing in pain. The living room was filled with the thick smell of tobacco. Xiaoxing was leaning back on the sofa, his legs casually resting on the coffee table, smoking one cigarette after another, the smoke swirling around his fingertips. Perhaps it was the hormonal sensitivities of pregnancy. Or maybe I was just fed up with the constant smell of smoke after so many years, but I suddenly started to vomit. Hearing the noise, Xiaoxing looked over at me, then slowly got up and came over, his face sharp and commanding, yet, his cigarette never went out. After I was done vomiting bile, I rinsed my mouth and looked up to see my younger self in the mirror. Momentarily disoriented, it was the hottest time of the year in Yangqing, and there was not a breath of wind on the balcony. Xiaoxing leaned against the railing, looking utterly carefree and lax. Looking at him, I took a deep breath and said calmly, "Xiaoxing, let's get a divorce. Tomorrow morning at 10, we'll go to the civil affairs office and get it done, so we can stop tormenting each other." Without giving him a chance to reply, I continued. "I know there's nothing between you and Jiang Mengyao, but I really don't want to waste any more of my life on meaningless arguments with you. It's simply not worth it." Seeing that Xiaoxing remained silent, I looked up at him and said slowly, "I'll have the pregnancy terminated this afternoon. Let's part on good terms. After the divorce, you can be with whoever you want, be it Jiang Mengyao or any young girl from your company." Hearing this, Xiaoxing finally reacted. He stared at me intensely, as if trying to discern something from my expression. After a moment, he flicked his cigarette ash, smirked disdainfully, and said, "Liang Ji, playing hard to get doesn't suit you." I didn't have the energy to argue with him. I simply said "oh," grabbed my peeling handbag, and headed for the door. Seeing that I was serious, Xiaoxing quickly grabbed my arm, his face darkening as he said, "Liang Ji, stop making a scene. You know very well that Jiang Mengyao and I are innocent. Do you realize how unappealing your current attitude is? My company is at a critical juncture, and I don't have time for these trivial games. Besides, you don't have a job or any savings, and yet you want to terminate my child. Who gave you such courage? Could it be?" He suddenly looked at me with suspicion. I freed myself from his grasp and slapped him, laughing without anger. "Xiaoxing, do you know what I hate most about you? Your presumptuousness and self-righteousness." In my previous life, Xiaoxing had told me countless times that he and Jiang Mengyao were innocent, but I had always treated his words as nothing more than a joke. I am well aware that they have always been ambiguously involved under the guise of friendship. There's the teasing from colleagues at the company, the coincidental sharing of a glass of red wine, and the accidental physical contact. Men seem to enjoy this kind of ambiguity. And Xiaoxing is no exception. I steadied my emotions, took a deep breath, and declared resolutely, "I must divorce him, and I no longer want this child either. As for the child in my womb, I admit my decision is cruel, but I truly cannot allow Xiaoxing to destroy me a second time." In my previous life, it took me nearly 10 years to realize that Xiaoxing had never loved me. His pursuit and marriage to me were merely acts of spite. Driven by his bruised ego after Jiang Mengyao chose another man, the son of a factory leader, over him, feeling humiliated and also wanting to spite Jiang Mengyao, he set his sights on me amidst the encouragement of his so-called friends. That year, 18-year-old Liang Ji was beautiful and confident, admired by many suitors, and recognized as the belle of the textile factory. She was the first girl in the factory to wear dresses and high-heeled shoes to work, and she sported large, wavy curls. I had often fantasized about my future, but all those dreams were shattered by Xiaoxing. After we married, since I wasn't the woman he truly wanted to marry, and because there was never any love from the start, he never cared about my feelings. Back then, I didn't understand and would often hysterically throw things around to vent my frustrations, until I accidentally saw how he was with Jiang Mengyao. As soon as Jiang Mengyao divorced, he brought her into the company under the guise of friendship and secretly rented out the welfare apartment allocated to me and him to her. Though it was called renting, I never saw a penny. He was extremely considerate and cautious around her, making sure not to offend her in any way. Even when he was craving a cigarette, he would restrain himself if she was around. As his construction business grew larger and he became wealthier, he would take her to high-end venues and introduce her to his friends. His business partners were never aware of my existence. They only knew Jiang Mengyao as Xiaoxing's most capable assistant and his confidant. Even when I accidentally fell down the stairs and was reborn, he was still accompanying her at banquets, helping her expand her network and planning to invest in her business. In Xiaoxing's eyes, I was merely an accessory, the mother of his child, the woman who cooked for him at home, while Jiang Mengyao was the true companion he wanted by his side, his first love whom he truly wanted to marry. Whenever he faced me, Xiaoxing would always say, "You don't understand," his face often filled with disgust and impatience, and he would always storm out by slamming the door. "Do we really have to do this?" he asked. pinching the bridge of his nose with a look of impatience. Liangji, you're already lucky enough, I provide for you well. You don't have to work, you don't have to socialize and drink like a subordinate, what more could you possibly want? Because of the difficult pregnancy, I was physically weak and eventually had to quit my job at the textile factory, becoming a housewife as per Xiaoxing's suggestion. After the child was born, I was overwhelmed to the point of breaking down, my hair fell out in clumps, and I couldn't even get a good night's sleep, yet, Xiaoxing saw all this as nothing out of the ordinary. In his eyes, I was just lying around at home every day. Xiaoxing would tell everyone, I'm so busy outside, almost never touching the ground with my feet, while she enjoys a carefree life at home, living better than the gods themselves, while he belittled me, making me live in his shadow. He also admired Jiang Mingyao's capabilities in her career, showering her with praise. Pulling myself back to the present, I masked my emotions and nodded repeatedly. Exactly, I'm not satisfied. So let's get the divorce proceedings started sooner rather than later, that way, you can find a little woman who depends entirely on you. Seeing this, Xiaoxing thought I was jealous. A slight smirk appeared on his face, tinged with mockery. He loosened his collar, speaking indifferently, since you're set on this divorce, have it your way, just don't come to regret it later. After saying this, he made an excuse about having to attend to company matters and tried to leave. Wait. Before you go, sign the agreement. After reviewing the agreement, he looked at me incredulously, his gaze hardening, then, his face turned ashen, and through gritted teeth he said, Liangji, you're really something. I smiled, the feelings mutual. Seeing Xiaoxing hesitating to sign, I said with a half-smile, what, can't bear to part with me? Ha, you think too highly of yourself. Xiaoxing has always been a staunch male chauvinist. Especially towards me, never willing to give in even a little. His hesitation was never about me, but about the child in my womb. Provoked by my words, Xiaoxing impulsively signed the divorce agreement, not giving him a chance to change his mind. I carefully placed the agreement in my bag, then calmly reminded him, then, tomorrow at 10 in the morning, at the Civil Affairs office. Before I could finish, I was interrupted by the sound of the door slamming shut violently. That was the last sound of Xiaoxing storming out, evidently infuriated. Despite multiple attempts at divorce, elder family members' advice and the growing child in my womb always held us back from finalizing it. He must have believed that I wouldn't dare to terminate the pregnancy, thinking I was desperately in love with him, which emboldened him to act without restraint. After a simple lunch, I headed to the hospital. When I left the hospital, the child was no longer in my womb, in a past life. This child was very sensitive due to the unhappy marriage between me and Xiaoxing. Even the mere thought of divorce would frighten her, as Xiaoxing would threaten that I didn't want her. It was to prevent her from getting hurt again that I repeatedly yielded to Xiaoxing, stepping wrongly again and again. By the time I saw Xiaoxing clearly, my youth was gone, so, I continued the struggle with Xiaoxing. Why should I step aside and let him be happy with Jiang Mingyao after achieving success? As long as I didn't divorce, I remained the legitimate Mrs. Xiao. Without love, there was still money and a superior lifestyle, and my daughter would be the sole heir to his fortune. Now reborn, I've removed this weakness myself, hoping she can have a complete family in her next life, with parents who love her, not suffering a lifetime because of us. At a time when the national economy is booming with opportunities, it's time for me to cut my losses and become the fearless Liangji again. Perhaps not wanting to see me, Xiaoxing did not return all evening. The next day at the Civil Affairs office, I made a phone call. He had just woken up, still faintly hearing the giggling of a woman on the other end of the phone. It was Jiang Mingyao's voice. Liangji, can you stop causing trouble? I was up all night and just signed a big contract. I'm really tired now. I took a deep breath and said sarcastically, tired? It seems to me like you're tired from being in bed, Xiaoxing. Since we're getting a divorce, can't you wait a bit longer? Must you disgust me like this? Hearing this, the staff at the Civil Affairs Bureau exchanged glances, as if they had stumbled upon some juicy gossip. Xiaoxing on the other end of the line lost his patience, chuckled mockingly, and said through gritted teeth, Liangji, aren't you just leveraging the baby in your belly to manipulate me? You think I won't divorce you because of the child, so you keep making a scene to feel important. Right, because of the child in your belly, I have given you enough respect. Don't go too far, it's quite annoying. Xiaoxing was too arrogant, always assuming everything was his due, never reflecting on himself, not wanting to continue the argument. I spoke the truth. That's a pity because the child you're talking about was lost yesterday at 3 in the afternoon. As soon as I finished speaking, I heard Jiang Mingyao's pained scream, and after pushing her away, Xiaoxing was already on his way to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Half an hour later, Xiaoxing appeared. Liang Ji, how could you, reeking of cigarettes and alcohol, his eyes bloodshot and his face ferocious. He was clearly furious to the extreme. I waved him off and took the opportunity to distance myself from him. I continued righteously, why shouldn't I? You have a mistress outside, and it's the same woman who had once abandoned you. Compared to your brainless self, I'm the lesser evil. I've told you it's not true. I promoted Jiang Mingyao because she's capable and meets my company's recruitment standards. Why must you imagine things? Xiaoxing, calming down, pinched the bridge of his nose and looked helpless, making it seem as if I was making unreasonable fuss. Seeing that bystanders were about to intervene, I coldly said, the company apartment benefits, the lipstick mark on your shirt, perfectly matching couples' outfits, every single piece of evidence. Which one have I fabricated? Xiaoxing was momentarily speechless but quickly regained his sharp tone, implying, so, you aborted my child over these misunderstandings. Liang Ji, how could you be so cruel? As for Jiang Mingyao, I have nothing to say because she and I are innocent. You're just too sensitive and making a mountain out of a molehill. He made it sound so natural, as if all my pain and breakdown over this period were just me looking for trouble, but I knew better than anyone. Even if Xiaoxing wasn't cheating now, under Jiang Mingyao's deliberate approach, he had already shown tolerance towards her, almost welcoming her advances. After all, she was his unrequited first love from his youth. Jiang Mingyao's pitiful act only satisfied him more, making him feel powerful. You're wronging me. You've already signed the divorce papers, so why should I still bear children for you? It's broad daylight. What kind of daydream are you having? With the divorce papers brought out, Xiaoxing became the target of public criticism. This is your own signature. Don't deny it, you set me up. Staring at the agreement, Xiaoxing looked as if he had just realized what happened. Though she phrased it as a question, her tone was decidedly affirmative. No, I came to my senses just in time. Just because I'm carrying your child, do I deserve to suffer through pregnancy without respect? To be scorned by you is useless, incapable of anything. But don't forget, I was once a garment designer at the textile factory's drafting department, earning at least $100 a month with commissions, and I contributed half of your initial startup capital. It's because of you that I ended up like this. What are you going to compensate me with? So you blame me? He frowned deeply, his gaze filled with incomprehension as he looked at me, watching Xiaoxing, who never seemed to realize his own faults. I suddenly felt very tired. After diverting my gaze, I handed over the divorce papers to the staff and then slowly said, am I not supposed to blame you? You clearly couldn't forget Jiang Mingyao, yet you still married me. Despite my pregnancy sensitivities, my inability to eat, and my inexplicably low moods, you continued your entanglements with Jiang Mingyao, even going as far as to bring her into the company to vex me further. Don't you think you've gone too far, Xiaoxing? There's a limit to how much you can bully someone. Unable to hold back any longer, I bowed my head and started to cry. The suffocating feeling in my chest finally eased as I vented everything out. Seeing me cry, Xiaoxing was momentarily stunned. Just as he stepped forward, my retreating gestures stopped him, and he retracted his lifted foot. After a while, I hoarsely said, Xiaoxing, just let me go. Do you know, your relentless behavior right now is truly disgusting. Xiaoxing has always been arrogant. With the conversation turning to this point, how could he cling on any longer? So he scoffed coldly, glaring at me fiercely, and said, fine, let's divorce right now. Whoever backs out is a coward. The procedures were processed quickly, and within minutes, as soon as he received the divorce certificate, Xiaoxing, with a gloomy face, turned and left. I walked out of the civil affairs office, watching his departing back. I lowered my head and chuckled softly, then turned and walked in the opposite direction. After the divorce, I received 50,000 yuan, as well as the welfare apartment where Jiang Mingyao had lived, even though I was disgusted that she had lived there. The apartment was a much better deal than just receiving cash. After all, in a few years, the property prices in Yangqing would skyrocket, resulting in a huge profit. As the news of my divorce from Xiaoxing spread throughout the textile factory, Jiang Mingyao kept playing dumb and delayed moving out. I simply hired a few strong men to go to the residential compound to help her move out, which really meant throwing all her stuff out. Stop. What are you doing, Jiang Mingyao? Dressed in a white blouse and a black pencil skirt, came back from work and saw her belongings scattered all over the ground outside, instantly going mad with rage. don't touch my things, this is breaking and entering, I'm calling the police to arrest you. She stood at the door, trying to block them. But they weren't about to listen to her and pushed her aside effortlessly. Ma'am, please step aside, we're just doing our job, look, the mistress has come back. As they were about to finish moving everything, I walked out of the room with my arms crossed and a composed demeanor. I'm not a mistress, my relationship with him was completely innocent. Why are you accusing me like this? Jiang Mengyao retorted loudly after hearing my call. She seemed to have received a great insult, her eyes reddened with anger, and she looked on the verge of tears, unmoved. I rolled my eyes at her. Give me a break. If you're not Xiaoxing's mistress, then why do you get to live here without paying a penny? Hearing my words, the neighbors watching the drama started whispering among themselves. So she really didn't pay, huh? That does say something about their relationship not being normal. The mistress has moved in. No wonder Liang Ji wants a divorce. Hey, stop talking. Xiaoxing is coming, an auntie hinted quietly with a nudge of her chin. As Xiaoxing approached, the surroundings instantly fell silent. He looked more haggard than I had seen him in days, his beard unshaven, and the smell of tobacco and alcohol emanating from him was overwhelming. Liang Ji, do you really need to rush things like this? Right off the bat, Xiaoxing spoke up for Jiang Mengyao. Of course, I need to. Just thinking about her living in my house makes me sick to my stomach. You, feeling insulted, Jiang Mengyao looked as if she wanted to fight me on the spot, but Xiaoxing held her back. He looked at me unwaveringly, then after a moment, he slightly curled his lips and said with a light smile, all right, as you wish. After speaking, he turned to Jiang Mengyao, speaking gently, Mengyao, let me find you another place to live, I promise it'll be even better than here. While Xiaoxing was talking to Jiang Mengyao, his glances towards me felt like a challenge, not wanting any interaction with such a lunatic. I turned my face away, just in time to see Jiang Mengyao blushing shyly. Seemingly triggered by some thought, her face turned a soft pink, and she smiled sweetly. Then I'll trouble you, Xiaoxing, really, thank you, without you, I don't know what I would have done. Just like that, in front of me, their conversation began to turn ambiguous. Having been through much in my past life, I no longer cared. I shuddered and scoffed, disgusting, if you want to be intimate, go somewhere else and spare my eyes. Jiang Mengyao was swept away by my broom, and Xiaoxing followed closely behind her. Before leaving, his gaze at me was extraordinarily complex, and I could even sense his annoyance. After hearing about my divorce from Xiaoxing, my parents insisted I remarry him, or they would disown me, a threat no different from my previous life. Spats between husband and wife are inevitable. If everyone acted like you, aborting and divorcing at the drop of a hat, wouldn't that be chaos? You're just too hot-tempered. My mother lamented as she paced in front of me. I couldn't stand it any longer and spoke harshly. Mom, do you know Xiaoxing is still entangled with his ex? As soon as someone gets divorced, he eagerly moves in. He's already mistreated me so much, why should I demean myself? That's not even confirmed yet. Xiaoxing said she just ran into some trouble and he was just lending a hand. Besides, you've been well taken care of at home during your pregnancy, not lacking anything. You've been living more happily than most. Liang Ji, sometimes in life, it's best to turn a blind eye and not be too unforgiving. She sighed. Continuing, she said, your father and I are getting old. In the future, you can only rely on your children and Xiaoxing. But you just had to. Sighing deeply, Liang's mother wore a face full of worry, as if I were the one who had made a mistake. Liang's father, too, sat beside her with a sullen face, remaining silent. After a long while, he finally spoke. Marriage is no child's play. If there's a chance to reconcile, then do it. I think that young man still cares about you. He wouldn't have come to us and treated us with the respect due to in-laws otherwise. Seeing that they were both enchanted by Xiaoxing, I lost any desire to persuade them otherwise and said resolutely, it's impossible. I've already terminated the pregnancy. How can I possibly start over with him? Everyone knows, once water is spilled, it cannot be gathered up again. In my previous life, I lacked courage, always hesitating and too easily swayed, missing out on better opportunities. If in this life I were to tread the same path, sacrificing my happiness, then I truly deserve it. Ever since I got pregnant and quit my job, Xiaoxing began to look down on me, constantly comparing me to that other woman. He treated me like a possession, something to keep around for his convenience. Supporting me wasn't enough. He also had to take care of his ex, dreaming of keeping his home intact while playing around outside. He thought too highly of himself. I know that because of my divorce, the neighbors are all laughing at me. Don't worry, I'll be leaving Yanqing in a few days, and from then on, I'll only come back for the new year at most, that way, you won't have to see and be bothered by me. After the divorce, I thought of making my way in Jing City, which would not only distance me from Shaoxing but also spare my parents and sister-in-law from any discomfort due to my situation. Besides, there's a distant aunt of the Liang family who had moved to Jing City, so I wouldn't be completely lost there. I bought a train ticket for tomorrow morning. I've already rented out the apartment I reclaimed, and I haven't told anyone the exact time of my departure. Living in the economically booming Yanqing, I went to a textile factory the day before leaving to wholesale some new clothing for street vending in Jing City, which is why I sought out Xiang, who had been my closest friend at the factory. Knowing I was leaving Yanqing, she was the only one who didn't try to dissuade me. Just because Shaoxing made some money from his business after our divorce, everyone said I didn't know the good life I had and called me incapable of keeping my man's heart. It's good for you, you should live like this, Xiang said with a single sentence, giving me tremendous courage. Indeed, I used to be someone who dared to try anything. After finalizing our collaboration and having her help with collecting the rent, I went to a newly opened supermarket nearby, only to unexpectedly run into Shaoxing. He was buying cigarettes, surrounded by a few sycophantic friends. Bro Xiao, you're not really going to marry Jiang Mengyao, are you? Everyone's been talking about you two behind your backs. Shaoxing's hand paused with the cigarette pack at these words, and when he recovered, his expression turned sour. What nonsense are you all spouting? There's nothing between her and me. Noticing Shaoxing's foul mood, Huang Mao hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Right, besides, she's divorced, she's not worthy of you. Huang Mao's words, however, struck a nerve with Shaoxing. He lashed out with a kick to Huang Mao's leg and cursed. Who are you calling divorced? Who are you saying is divorced? Bro Xiao, don't get me wrong, I wasn't talking about you. Even after saying this, Shaoxing was unforgiving. Huang Mao, realizing a possibility, cautiously ventured. So, brother, are you planning to remarry your ex-wife? Seeing that Shaoxing did not object, his mouth fell open in shock. Once he recovered, he immediately said, actually, your ex-wife is really quite good, pretty and good at managing a household. Remarrying her is indeed a good idea. I heard she hasn't found a job yet, and her family has been talking about her. Brother, you could take this chance when she's most vulnerable to pursue her again. However, before Shaoxing could respond, the man in the floral shirt with a crew cut retorted, what's there to chase after? It's all spoiling them. You can tell you've never been married. You should know, women shouldn't be spoiled. Once you start, they'll walk all over you. Shaoxing lit a cigarette, nodded slightly in agreement, and said, indeed, with a cold smirk. He confidently declared, so, once she's suffered enough and can't take it anymore, she'll come back to me. I've got all the time in the world, I can wait. After paying, the group continued their conversation as they walked away. It wasn't until they were completely out of sight that I stepped out from the corner, my laughter tinged with irony. The next morning, I quietly headed to the train station with my luggage. After several days and nights on the train, I finally arrived in the capital city smoothly. A week later, with my grandmother's help, I rented a small house near her hutong and started my life as a street vendor, although it was hard work. People in the capital city were not short of money. Clothing and small accessories from the south were very popular here, and I usually sold out in about half a month. Seeing that I had made back my initial investment and had started to profit, I called Xiang and asked her to send another batch of new styles by train. Over the phone, Xiang was happy to hear that the clothes were doing well in the capital city. After discussing business, she suddenly changed the subject cheerfully. Liang Ji, have you heard about Shaoxing and Jiang Mengyao? Caught off guard by the mention of their names, I was stunned for a moment. During this busy time, I had almost stopped thinking about the past, including my previous life. After all, one must live in the present, especially with the chance to start over. Rather than getting wrapped up in self-pity about the past, I lowered my eyes, disinterestedly asking, no, what happened? Seeing my question, Xiang, thrilled to share the gossip, excitedly said, after you left, Jiang Mengyao tried to climb up to be the real boss's wife and started seducing Shaoxing aggressively, but for some reason, Shaoxing was always lukewarm towards her. Recently, after she drugged him, he fired her outright. Because of the drugging, Shaoxing ended up in the hospital, and Jiang Mengyao lost both her glossy job and her reputation. Now she's hiding at home, too ashamed to show her face. After a pause, Xiang reminded me, by the way, Xiaoxing's company is shifting its focus and planning to expand into the capital city. If you want to avoid any entanglements with him, you'd better be careful. Okay, Xiang, thank you. After hanging up, I sighed, feeling nothing but trouble ahead. Regarding Xiaoxing's sudden shift in business, I spared no malice in suspecting his motives, as he had always been highly purpose-driven. He must have learned about my whereabouts from my parents. But I don't understand why he just can't let me go. Could it be that he is no longer capable? The winters in Jing City are very cold. On the snow-covered streets, I started selling the currently popular down jackets and cotton coats. To avoid being lectured by relatives and friends, I decided not to return to Yangqing for the new year. Instead, I sent my parents 300 yuan for the festival expenses. On the first day of the new year, I didn't set up my stall. Instead, my aunt, who enjoys the bourgeois lifestyle, dressed me up nicely. I wore a light gray turtleneck sweater, a black coat, dark blue jeans, and a pair of short boots. My hair was simply tied up, revealing a small part of my pale neck. With light makeup on my face, I indeed looked elegant and intelligent. After replacing the earbuds on my ears with small pearl earrings, the old lady looked me over and said contentedly, "Money is endless, but you are at your most beautiful age. Don't waste what you have." If it were my choice, I'd dress up beautifully every day if I were still young, unlike you, dressed in casual sportswear every day, which is quite unappealing. That's true, you're always stylish, I replied, wrapping a scarf around my neck. The old lady's aesthetic sense was truly good. With her styling, I did look much brighter and more attractive. I ran into Xiaoxing outside a clothing store. Perhaps influenced by the old lady's words, I ended up buying several outfits after browsing. "Welcome to visit us again." As I was leaving the store with my bags, I bumped right into the cold-eyed Xiaoxing. Just one look from him could chill someone to the bone. The air turned biting, and suddenly it was quiet all around. Within seconds, he strode up to me and tightly grabbed my wrist, not letting go no matter how much I struggled. Xiaoxing looked me up and down, his face stern, and scoffed coldly. "Dressed up so flamboyantly, you must have someone in mind, yet you still smile so brightly. Why do you frown when I appear? As if you despise me." "Let go." His gaze was fierce, as if he wanted to tear me apart. Fearing that I might truly anger him, I stopped resisting and just stood there quietly, waiting for his reason to return. After a while, Xiaoxing's lost rationality seemed to return slightly. He held my head, looked into my eyes, and said hoarsely, "Liang Ji, I regret it. I regret divorcing you. I don't care about the child anymore. If we remarry, you can decide whether to have children or not. It's all up to you. I'll even fully support you if you want to work." Hearing this from Xiaoxing was a miracle in itself. After all, in my previous life, I made some money from stocks and used it to buy a shop and open a tea store, which he thought was me being wild. Seeing that I still couldn't break free, I turned my head away slightly in disgust, suppressing the anger in my heart, and endured before saying, "Xiaoxing, we are already divorced. We are now two unrelated individuals. You're not someone who can't accept defeat. You should move on." "But I just regret it. Liang Ji, can we start over?" His gaze shifted to me, his throat moved slightly, and he spoke with suppression. "I know I had many faults before, but believe me, I never thought of betraying you. The thing with Jiang Mengyao, I was momentarily blinded by a ridiculous sense of vanity, thinking only to satisfy it. I had stopped liking her long ago. She's been fired now, and I assure you she won't bother you again. When I married you, it was out of affection, nothing else." For a moment, I was silent, then looked up at him with a chilling calm and said, "Regret is meaningless now, for I no longer love you. A marriage without love is just an empty shell. Merely for show." Counting my past life, I have endured over 2 decades of a marriage akin to widowhood. I've truly had enough. "Liang Ji," as a gentle male voice called out. I turned to see Jiang Yuan and his 4-year-old daughter Yaya standing at the corner of the store. "Daddy, it's Auntie." The little girl, holding a stick of candied ha, was about to run towards me, but Jiang Yuan quickly stopped her. Seeing the father and daughter like this, a flash of malice crossed Xiaoxing's eyes, and his lips curled into a sneer. "So there really is someone new. Liang Ji, you rejected me for such second-hand goods, willing to be a stepmother to someone else's child. How cheap." Xiaoxing blurted out impulsively. I took a deep breath, tilted my head back, and bluntly admitted, "You're right. I'd rather be a stepmother and have children for another man than be with you or have your children." Under Xiaoxing's icy and sinister gaze, I smiled silently. My words and demeanor were like a dagger to the heart, striking precisely at Xiaoxing's most painful spot. sensing his relaxation, I tightly pursed my lips, prying his fingers off my arm one by one, then flung them away forcefully. On the way back, the atmosphere was somewhat awkward. After a moment, I explained, that was my ex-husband. His thinking is a bit, that's why I said those things to chase him off. Don't take it to heart. I tapped my head, somewhat embarrassed. I know. I didn't overthink it, Jiang Yuan replied with a gentle smile. Speaking of which, my acquaintance with Jiang Yuan began through his daughter. Only after getting to know him did I discover he was a university professor, one of the most promising young individuals in the area. His liking for books endowed him with the demeanor of a refined gentleman, full of scholarly charm, and he was also tall and handsome. If it hadn't been for his ex-wife insisting on a divorce to go abroad, their family of 3 would have been very happy. Lost in thought, I didn't notice the hesitant Jiang Yuan beside me until Yaya ran off to buy a popsicle. In the alley filled with children's laughter, Jiang Yuan suddenly stopped, turned to look at me, and started to speak. Liang Ji, about what you said just now. Before he could finish, I exclaimed, "Ah, it's snowing again." I stretched out my hand, letting the snowflakes fall into my palm. Too beautiful to brush away, do you know? It was only after coming here that I saw snow, a vast expanse of white. It's truly picturesque. Then, blinking, I smiled at him and said, "By the way, I'm moving. I bought a shop with living quarters on Huan Street and plan to do business there. Besides visiting the elderly, I likely won't come here much. The little girl loves to play and eat. You should still keep an eye on her, especially since kidnappings are all too common these days." Jiang Yuan is such a clever person. He almost instantly understood everything when I spoke. After a while, he withdrew his gaze, turned his head to look at Yaya in front of him, and managed a slight smile, saying, "Then let me wish you prosperity in your business ahead of time. Thank you for your kind words." After finishing speaking, I walked over to the little girl, crouched down, and tucked a big red envelope into her pocket. After parting ways with them, I quickly walked into the courtyard where my grandmother lives and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Inside the house, my grandmother was lying on a rocking chair, listening to the radio. Hearing the noise, she turned her head, glanced at me, and asked with a smile, "Did you have fun today?" "Just now, Mrs. Lee came over and told me she saw you coming back with Jiang Yuan from next door. Are you too?" Before the old lady could finish, I hastily explained, "It's nothing like that. We just happened to meet on the road, and Yaya was with us too." Seeing my apprehensive demeanor, the old lady sighed and couldn't help but advise, "Actually, for someone like you who has been divorced and remarried, Jiang Yuan would be an excellent choice. Although he has a 4-year-old daughter, Yaya is well behaved and likes you very much, so you don't have to worry about potential difficulties in getting along. I've lived here for over 30 years and know the area well. Zhang's parents are reasonable, and Jiang Yuan himself is a good man. You're a woman, after all. There's no need to be overly assertive. You might consider it." Knowing the old lady meant well, since most people's thinking was still quite limited compared to 20 years later, and the little girl was indeed well behaved. I still didn't want to become her stepmother. It was hard to speak harshly to the old lady, as she truly had my best interests at heart. As she said, Jiang Yuan and his family were indeed good people, but I wanted to live my life freely and without restraint, which meant no connection with him. So, I sat down, took her arm, and spoke frankly. Being with Jiang Yuan, no matter how good he and his family are, would mean compromising myself. Hearing this, the old woman was momentarily puzzled. I decided to be even more direct, hypothetically stating, if I were to marry Jiang Yuan, no matter how much Yaya liked me, he would have to balance my relationship with her. There will always be friction and disputes, and I don't think I can compete with a child. Besides, I am quite selfish and lack a spirit of sacrifice, especially when it comes to being a stepmother, which I'm not interested in. Educating a child is hard enough, even more so when they're not your own. And about Yaya's biological mother, she's just abroad. If she ever returns, no one knows how Jiang Yuan and Yaya would treat her. If they can't let go of her, what would my place be then? I'm really wary of dealing with first loves and ex-wives. Seeing the old lady about to persuade further, I earnestly said, remarrying has always been a complicated issue. Marrying a strong man feels like being consumed, and marrying a weaker one feels like a loss, Grandma. I'm a businesswoman and good at calculating costs, so I've never considered remarrying. Marriage is not the only path for a woman. I don't need to prove my worth through marriage anymore. I have money, property, and intelligence, and I certainly don't lack love. Finally, the old lady gave up trying to persuade me. She could see that I was living a fulfilled and happy life, and the mundane concerns of daily life no longer suited me. After opening up, I began to expand my business horizon, venturing into the fashion industry for real, without just dabbling in minor deals. As my business flourished, Xiaoxing resurfaced and began to harass me persistently. Despite his efforts, I never showed him any warmth. Whether he feigned drunkenness to whisper sweet nothings or resorted to self-suffering tricks, I treated him as nothing but a clown. After all, the hurt he had once caused me was very real. Even though the wounds had healed, the scars remained. I was never a fan of mending broken relationships. I preferred the turning of the tables, even to a destructive extent. Why should a mere apology from him, eyes red, compel me to forgive him as if nothing had happened? Seeing my increasingly cold glances, Xiaoxing stopped pressing me and switched to a more conciliatory approach. After earning enough money to ensure a comfortable life, I moved to a third-tier city and bought a villa with a large garden, where I started my secluded retirement. Largely distancing myself from Xiaoxing, since I didn't leave my house, he had no way to bother me. Thus, I ignored Xiaoxing for 20 years, until the year he turned 45, when he was unexpectedly diagnosed with late-stage lung cancer. As Xiaoxing lay on his deathbed barely clinging to life, his family couldn't help but call me, but I never answered, even after the doctors declared him dead. As I said before, I truly never forgave him in his lifetime. In a separate event from the past, upon hearing the news of Liang Ji falling down the stairs and dying instantly, Xiaoxing and Xiaoani hurried back home. In the dimly lit room, as soon as Xiaoani entered, she saw Xiaoxing clutching their mother's corpse. Losing his mind, Liang Ji, stop pretending now. Isn't this what you wanted, for me to come back? Now that I'm here, how much longer will you keep this up? If you hadn't been so stubborn, growing more and more indifferent towards me, and always acting like nothing mattered, why would I have thought to provoke you with Jiang Mengyao? Unable to stand Xiaoxing disrespecting their mother any longer, an infuriated Xiaoani pushed him away, protectively covering Liang Ji's body to prevent him from touching her. She spoke with disdain. My mother is dead. Who are you trying to impress with this act of passion? Just like Mom said, you really are despicable. Remembering everything that had happened, tears welled up in Xiaoani's eyes as she choked up. All she ever wanted while she was alive was a bit of respect from you, her husband. But what were you doing? You were busy being intimate with your close female friend. Don't say it was unintentional, because you genuinely hurt her. If it hadn't been for me, worried that you and that woman would mistreat me, she would have left this place long ago to live a life without you. Her voice was filled with sorrow. Determined not to let Xiaoxing off easily, she pulled off the jade bead bracelet from Liang Ji's wrist and pointed to an old but gruesome scar. This is what she did to herself after I was born, during a bout of postpartum depression and nervous breakdown. What were you doing then? You were busy complaining about her being unreasonable and not presentable. She clearly told you she was feeling unwell, but you never took it to heart. All of you just bullied her. Xiaoani broke down screaming. She knew she had lost the mother who loved her the most. I didn't know. He stuttered, unable to form a coherent response. Xiaoani frantically wiped her tears, but they only fell faster. Whenever Xiaoxing tried to come closer, she kicked and bit fiercely. Xiaoxing could barely contain his anger, wishing he could kill to vent his frustration. After Liang Ji's burial, Xiaoxing began to drown his sorrows in alcohol. 3 years later, weakened by his circumstances, he was sidelined by his daughter, Xiaoani, who took full control of the company's affairs. Since Xiaoxing's only child was Xiaoani, the company's board dared not object. Even if they were dissatisfied, they had to suppress their grievances. Having bided her time over the years, Xiaoani did not disappoint when she took over. She immediately began to overhaul the company, first by terminating the collaboration with Jiang Mingyao's company, then by withdrawing funds and citing severe excess of formaldehyde in the decorating materials to permanently cease cooperation. Being a decorating company less than a year old, it couldn't withstand such pressure from Xiaoani. Soon, the company faced various internal issues. Without Xiaoxing's backing and with clients afraid to engage their services, salaries went unpaid, staff protested, and Jiang Mengyao was in a state of constant panic, left with no choice. Jiang Mengyao desperately sought Xiaoxing's help. Upon learning this, Xiaoani kicked open the door and slapped Jiang Mengyao across the face. I am now the one steering the Xiao Corporation. Aren't you always touting yourself as a clear-headed, independent woman? What now? Can't stand strong without a man. Xiaoani unleashed a torrent of sarcasm. Before Jiang Mengyao could defend herself, Xiaoani pointed at Xiaoxing and said, "Unfortunately, he's just a powerless old man now. If you really want to marry him, go ahead. After all, I've successfully taken over the company, and thanks to my mother's long-term care, he's no longer capable of having children. Having someone to care for him wholeheartedly without costing a penny, I, as his daughter, would be only too pleased." Her words left others in shock and brought wry smiles. "He never believed in me from the start," Xiaoxing said bitterly, suddenly realizing that his life had become a joke over the years. "Trust you? I'd sooner believe a sow could climb a tree," Xiaoani sneered. Greatly influenced by Liang Ji, Xiaoani chose to remain unmarried, opting instead to select quality sperm from a sperm bank for childbirth. Thus, both lived their lives in separate realities, each believing themselves to be truly happy. Xiaoxing was confined by Xiaoani to the villa where Liang Ji had lived. He was free to move around but forbidden from entering Liang Ji's room. According to Xiaoani, he was unworthy. Moreover, she consistently ignored his requests to be buried together with Liang Ji in his later years. "You've disgusted my mother all her life. How could I possibly let you haunt her in the next life and soil her cycle of reincarnation?" Xiaoxing left this world full of regrets. After an indeterminate amount of time, he opened his eyes to find himself young again, unable to discern whether it was a dream or reality. He only knew Liang Ji was still alive, vibrant and even more captivating than when he first met her. Due to some discrepancies, they were divorced, his daughter was gone, and their relationship had cooled to an icy low. Xiaoxing thought, as long as he was sincere and treated her well, she would eventually forgive him. But even when he was diagnosed with lung cancer, suffering terribly from chemotherapy, she showed no signs of softening. Only then did he fully understand that Liang Ji truly despised him. Story 2. In my previous life, I was in the 7th year of my relationship with my boyfriend when I died in a sudden flood. My soul lingered and stayed by his side. I watched him wander through his days and a days, breaking down into tears over the news of my death. I saw him abandon everything else and wither away, clinging to our memories until his last moments. As his life came to an end, he held a photo of me and vowed never to let go of my hand in the next life. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day of the flood, with the memories of my previous life. I managed to survive and eventually married him. However, the man who loved me so deeply in my past life that he could die of heartbreak betrayed me 5 years into our marriage. Just when I had become pregnant, I first saw them at the hospital lobby. The girl seemed to be injured. Haisuko rushed into the hospital with her in his arms, charging through the crowd as he shouted for people to make way. He was so panicked that he didn't see anyone else, not even me. So, when he ran past me, he accidentally bumped into me, causing me to lose balance and fall to the ground. My prenatal checkup papers were even stepped on by him. A nurse helped me up and picked up the papers, muttering, "Your girlfriend is precious, but someone else's wife and child are treasures too." After 7 years of dating and 5 years of marriage, I recognized him instantly, even just from his back. I had never seen the girl before. Perhaps she was a colleague, a friend, or maybe just an injured stranger he had met by chance on the street. For that moment, I believed in his love for me and trusted he wouldn't betray me. But something compelled me to follow them discreetly. At the orthopedic clinic, I saw them again as they entered the consultation room together. The door wasn't fully closed, so I stood by the doorway, peeking through the crack. The girl had injured her ankle and sat on a chair, sobbing continuously. A teardrop-shaped, crystal-clear necklace hung around her neck, shimmering beautifully. Haisuko sat beside the girl, holding her hand tightly, repeatedly comforting her in a soft voice. "It's just a minor sprain, it won't hurt." The girl was still scared, so Haisuko wrapped his arms around her. The doctor chuckled and teased, "Your little girlfriend is quite delicate." Haisuko laughed too, wiped her tears, and continued to coax her gently. "Yes, she's incredibly delicate, cries every day." Listening to Haisuko's words, the girl playfully acted angry and punched him several times in the chest. "Haisuko, if you find me annoying or too delicate, then just leave me alone." Haisuko shook his head, his smile affectionate. "Even if you're delicate, I still like it." With just a few simple words, he cheered up the girl and even made the doctor laugh. They looked just like a couple deeply in love, and there I was, standing still, feeling like a thief spying on someone else's happiness. I never imagined that Haisuko would betray me. We both had humble beginnings, abandoned by our biological parents and growing up as orphans. We first met in high school when he was mocked by others for being an orphan. He clenched his fists but dared not to retort. showing timidity and cowardice, the person reminded me of my former self, which is why I felt compelled to teach them a lesson. Back then, my classmates thought of me as a lunatic and my teachers saw me as a waste of space. Anyone who dared to bully me would face severe consequences. I told Hisui Chow. So what if we're orphans? The director of the orphanage is like our mother, and the other kids there are our brothers and sisters. We have no reason to feel inferior. When I couldn't stand it anymore, I'd just throw a punch to shut them up. Hisui Chow probably had never seen a girl as fierce as me before. He stood there stunned for a while, then hesitantly clenched his fists and swung at the air a couple of times. He asked me, "Is this how you throw a punch?" I laughed and said, "If you really can't fight, just find me. I'll fight for you." Since we were both orphans, I didn't charge him any money. At first, it was just physical attraction, but over time, we found a deep connection. His face was distractingly handsome, and from the moment I met him, I was smitten. Our similar tragic backgrounds, from high school to university, from superficial appearances to sincere hearts, brought us closer. We experienced so much together and eventually fell deeply in love without reservations. If only I hadn't died in that flood, maybe we would have had a lifetime of happiness. At least, that's what I always thought in my past life. I hate being constrained. Unlike Hisui Chow's quiet demeanor, I always wanted to see the world's most beautiful sights, so my biggest motivation to earn money was to travel the world and free my spirit. However, during one of my trips, I encountered the flood that claimed my life. It all happened too suddenly. The bridge collapsed, the flood was fierce, and ultimately, it took many lives, including mine. When Hisui Chow heard about the accident, he searched tirelessly for me for 7 whole days, until my remains were unearthed. He sat on the ground, covered in mud, then broke down and wept. Afterward, he repeatedly cut his wrists, saying he didn't want me to be lonely in the afterlife. So he wanted to join me. He was hospitalized countless times. Eventually, it was the orphanage director who convinced him to carry on with the memory of me and to live well. Hisui Chow survived, but he was like a walking corpse. He donated all his earnings to the orphanage. After abandoning everything, he just sat by my photo, living in sorrow for years, until he suddenly passed away at a young age. So, when I found out I had been reborn, I desperately escaped the flood that was meant to take my life. Gave up my dream of traveling the world, and strived to live a stable life, staying by his side and never leaving again. I thought we would live out this life simply and happily, but just 5 years later, Hisui Chow, who once loved me so much, cheated. This realization left me not just sad, but also in despair. Because I was pregnant, I gently touched my belly. This child was hard-won. It was the baby Hisui Chow and I had longed for years. At first, when I was experiencing morning sickness, I thought it was just my body being weak, afraid it might end in disappointment. He didn't tell him right away. A person arrived at the hospital with a nervous heart, had their blood drawn, and then went to see the doctor. After scanning the medical record, the doctor smiled at me and said, "Congratulations, you're going to be a mother." At that moment, I was truly overjoyed, so overjoyed that I couldn't wait to get home. As soon as I left the consultation room, I wanted to share the good news with Hisui Chow, but I held back. Because today was our 5th wedding anniversary, Hisui Chow had mentioned he had a gift for me, something he said I would really like. I had a good guess of what it might be. It was a crystal necklace I had long coveted but never managed to persuade the owner to sell to me. Last month, Hisui Chow had made a special trip abroad. Later, the owner sent me a message. She hinted subtly that my husband loved me very much. Said she was willing to part with it, wishing me happiness, but now, that necklace was worn by someone else. It wasn't just the necklace. Now, even Hisui Chow himself was no longer mine. I went home and sat on the sofa from day into night. The steak on the table had gradually cooled, but the person who was supposed to return never did. It wasn't until 11:52, Hisui Chow sent me a message, saying he had to go on a sudden business trip for work, and he was already abroad. He told me not to worry. He also said we would celebrate our anniversary when he returned, and he would make up for the gift then. But not everything can be redone. I blew out the candle and dumped the cold steak into the trash bin. Perhaps I was mentally prepared, so when I saw that message, I wasn't as upset as I expected. I even felt somewhat relieved to know first. That's why I didn't cook a candlelit dinner myself, but ordered from a well-reviewed restaurant, making sure to use Hisui Chow's card for the delivery. If he didn't come back, the destination of this delivery was the trash. Just like him, the dean's mother always said I was stubborn since I was young. If I wanted something, I would find a way to get it. but once I felt it wasn't that important anymore, no matter how deeply I loved it before, I could let go without clinging. I glanced at the time. It was exactly midnight. I sat on the sofa, looking out towards the balcony. Seeing nothing but the dark sky, I remembered adding the doctor's contact information when I returned from the hospital. He mentioned he would be on duty these days. Whether I wanted this child or not, I could tell him in advance, so I sent him a message. I asked him, if I decide on an abortion, could you schedule the procedure soon? The doctor replied quickly. He said, if you decide and after a checkup shows no issues, the earliest we can schedule an abortion is next Tuesday, if you're sure. Come to the hospital and see me. I gently touched my lower abdomen. Child, forgive me. If there isn't a happy family waiting for you, it's better to leave early and find another mom and dad. At least, it wouldn't be so painful. Before the surgery could even be arranged, I received an invitation from my alma mater. He Sui Chow and I didn't attend the same university, we lived at opposite ends of the same city, and could only meet on weekends. Each time we met, he would bring me green grape cakes. And I would buy him osmanthus-flavored milk tea, a specialty of my school. He Sui Chow was rather delicate in his tastes. He liked his milk tea very sweet, detested being out in the wind and sun, and couldn't handle the slightest hardship. That's why it's hard for me to forget the year when he found out I had an accident. He dug with his bare hands for 7 days and nights, his fingers raw and bleeding, his hands a mess of blood and mud. It pained my heart. Because the He Sui Chow I remember truly loved me deeply. However, that relationship eventually couldn't withstand the test of time. I accepted the invitation from my alma mater, but I never expected to see them again at the school. After finishing my speech on stage, a girl stood up and asked me a question with a microphone in hand. Hello, senior, I'm a junior in the journalism department, Lu Man. My question today isn't directly related to my major, but I wonder if you're still willing to answer. I nodded, noticing the challenge in her eyes. So, she knew who I was. Lu Man smiled slightly. I heard that you were a well-known journalist and later returned to family life for love. You've been married for 5 years. Are you happy? Are you afraid of the 7-year itch? I gripped the microphone, trying to control my emotions. I used to be a rebellious student, unafraid of anyone or anything. But after a near-death experience and seeing He Sui Chow devastated by my death, I decided to soften my edges and become a gentle, intellectual woman. But this doesn't mean I'm willing to tolerate provocation, so I simply responded with a light laugh. Love is unpredictable by nature. As for the 7-year itch you mentioned, I always believe a man who is responsible for his family will not cheat. If that day does come, all I can say is that he and that mistress would deserve each other. I paused, then looked at Lu Man, who seemed a bit pale. I asked her, Lu, as a fellow woman, do you think someone who becomes the other woman has any dignity, under everyone's gaze? She naturally couldn't say that only those who aren't loved are mistresses, as that would definitely provoke backlash. She could only grit her teeth, nod difficultly, and force a smile, perhaps frustrated. Lu Man couldn't help but add, but if that day really comes, as a wife, I think she's also quite useless for not being able to keep her husband's heart. I laughed. That's still better than knowingly being a mistress, willing to settle for leftovers without considering if they're tainted. People like that are merely picking up what others have discarded and are smug about it, of course. Men like that are no better, easily swayed by a mere gesture. How is that different from me throwing a bone to a stray dog, which then wags its tail at me? Then, pretending to be shocked, I covered my mouth with my hand. My mistake. How could I compare stray dogs with cheating men? Dogs are loyal companions to humans, while cheaters and mistresses, the trash of society, not even worth a second glance because it's so filthy. Junior sister Lu, do you think I'm right? I looked at Lu Man with a smile, my pride not allowing me to show even a hint of vulnerability in front of her. The long-lost fierceness felt surprisingly comforting. Perhaps, from the start, I shouldn't have tried to change myself for He Sui Chow, but in this silent battle, none of us won. He Sui Chow cheated. That just proves he didn't love me enough, so I didn't win. Lu Man knew it all along and was still proud. But she's destined to be despised, which also doesn't count as winning. Both of us have failed, but I have a clear conscience. I loved He Sui Chow sincerely and fervently. He betrayed me, and Lu Man knew everything, so I'm not the one at fault, they are. After finishing my speech, I walked off the stage. Perhaps it was on purpose. From a distance, I saw Lu Man, and He Sui Chow with his back to me. He held a large bouquet of roses, bent over, and pinched her face. But Lu Man looked greatly wronged and cried in his arms. He Sui Chao held her, repeatedly soothing her in a gentle voice. I stood still. Lu Man seemed to glance at me, then looked at He Sui Chao, and spoke loudly enough for me to hear. She asked, Sui Chao, why are you so good to me? He Sui Chao wiped the tears from her eyes, his tone still gentle. He said, have you forgotten? I told you about a dream I had repeatedly before meeting you. In the dream, there was a girl who fell into water, and I desperately tried to save her, but she disappeared. I was very sad in the dream, so sad I almost wanted to die. Then I met you, and the first time we met, you accidentally fell into the water, and you really resembled that girl. Maybe, you are the girl from my dream, and our meeting was fate, so, it turned out to be this way. I stood there, unsure whether to laugh or cry, with the memories of my past life. I knew this was not just a dream, but a real pain I had experienced in my previous life. Are his memories of his past life gradually returning? He Sui Chao said he loved the girl in his dream, and then fell in love with Lu Man, but he doesn't know, the girl in the dream was me. But now, what does it matter? The betrayal is a fact. Suddenly, a sharp pain surged in my abdomen. I couldn't help but bend over, clutching my stomach in excruciating pain. Lu Man laughed, tiptoed to embrace He Sui Chao, and provocatively looked at me. She asked He Sui Chao, who is more important to you, me or Wen Qian? He Sui Chao didn't have time to answer, because suddenly, I felt a warm flow surge out, sliding down my legs. There were exclamations, nervousness, and people rushing to help me, and at this moment, someone turned their head. As our eyes met, panic was all I could see in his. Wen Qian. I stood still, watching him sprint toward me. I've always wanted to know, one day, when he finds out that the girl in his dreams is me, what would his expression be? He approached me quickly, his expression filled with panic. Qian, why are you here? I wore a long black dress today that reached my ankles. At that moment, I felt a sharp pain in my lower abdomen. Blood trickled down my legs, staining my white shoes red as it dripped to my ankles. The passing classmates couldn't help but gasp when they saw this, but he, merely turning around by chance after hearing the commotion, had just noticed me. He didn't see that I was bleeding. His eyes flitted anxiously between me and Lu Man. Qian, this is a misunderstanding, actually. Today I have, Before he could finish, Lu Man suddenly fell to the ground not far from us. A cry of alarm. This made he, who was still trying to explain in panic, immediately forget to cover up and ran straight to her. Man, are you okay? He helped her up. I could see that Lu Man had a severe scrape on her knee, now swollen and bleeding profusely. Looking quite serious, Lu Man shook her head, our eyes meeting as she shed a couple more tears. It hurts a bit. Can you take me to the medical office first? His spine stiffened suddenly. Perhaps it was only then he realized that his wife, whom he had officially married, was standing not far away, watching him fuss over another woman. He turned around, his expression apologetic. I'll take Man to the hospital first. Let's talk when I get back tonight. He didn't give me a chance to speak. After saying this, he carried Lu Man away without looking back, from beginning to end. He never saw that at this very moment, I was bleeding, losing our child. I took a deep breath as the pain in my lower abdomen intensified. I could feel the child slipping away from me. The pain almost made me unable to stand. I grabbed a passing student by the hand. Excuse me, could you please call 120 for me? I was in unbearable pain. The child was gone. The doctor said the pregnancy was weak to begin with, and coupled with my anxiety, it couldn't be saved. She even tried to comfort me by saying there would be other chances in the future, but honestly, I wasn't that upset. I had already decided not to keep the baby. The miscarriage due to an accident was just another way to achieve the result I wanted. Perhaps, the child also felt that being born into a broken home would have been suffocating. Regardless, the only connection between he and me in this world was now completely severed, because of the miscarriage. I stayed in the hospital overnight and received no calls or messages from he. This meant that not only did he not come home last night, but he was also with Lu Man all along. I recovered quickly due to my youth and could go home the next day. I didn't bring much with me, and when I left cleanly. Apart from myself, there is nothing else. It must be fate, or perhaps even the heavens couldn't stand to watch. They wanted me to make a decision quickly, so. At the turn of the hospital corridor, I bumped into He Sui, who was in a hurry. He was holding a pink water bottle and a bag of breakfast, though he had changed his clothes and wasn't wearing the white shirt from yesterday. Some things If you think too deeply about them, only bring discomfort. But fate had it otherwise. He froze, trying to hide the water bottle and breakfast, but he realized that this action was somewhat childish, panic mixed with guilt, and in those few seconds, I watched him make numerous vain gestures. In the end, he just smiled, a guilty smile. He asked me, "Qianqian, what brings you to the hospital? Is there something you need to do here?" His question made me laugh out loud. Really? I couldn't control my laughter. I told him, "Something to do. I came here for fun." Does that sound believable to you? He Sui's expression became serious. Silently, he said, "Don't beat around the bush, let's solve whatever it is. You go home first. I promise I'll be there before noon, and we can talk about everything else later. Why put it off? Are you in a hurry to bring your little lover breakfast?" It was early morning, and the hospital corridor was already bustling with people. People love gossip. At the mention of a little lover, they were all ears. Looking back every few steps, he Sui, under the scrutiny of curious gazes, his ears turned red. "When Qian is not what you think, and Man and I are just ordinary friends, don't think of others so vilely. When did you become so unreasonable? Look, every man caught cheating, even faced with undeniable evidence, still tries to deflect blame, as if self-deception could alleviate his guilt." But before I could speak, a door to a nearby ward opened, and Lu Man limped out. She was wearing a hospital gown, but as a college freshman, she couldn't hide her youthful vitality. Lu Man approached me with an innocent smile. "Qianqian, you must have misunderstood he senior. We are just ordinary friends. We met at school because of my studies. If you have any grievances, feel free to vent them on me, but please don't embarrass him in front of so many people." Okay, such an understanding little lover. No wonder he was fond of her, but at that moment, the only thing I wanted was to divorce He Sui. Lu Man is just a sophomore. If her classmates and teachers knew that she, who looks decent, is involved with a married man, how could she face anyone at school? I spoke softly, but loud enough for both of them to hear clearly. The moment my words fell, I saw the expressions on both Lu Man's and He Sui's faces change dramatically, especially Lu Man. Her composure replaced by nervousness and fear. She dropped her pleasant facade and directly challenged me. "Are you planning to ruin me at school? Wen Qian, you're too malicious." He Sui chimed in, "Yes, that's too harsh. Qianqian, why must you act like this? Man and I are just friends. Don't spread rumors and tarnish a young girl's reputation so carelessly. Don't you think you're being too harsh?" Harsh, if it weren't for the fact that I haven't hit anyone in years, and if it weren't for my current physical weakness. I would really like to scratch his face right now, but it's not too late. There will be an opportunity. I took several deep breaths. There was still a dull pain in my abdomen, and I dared not breathe too deeply. I just quietly watched He Sui face the exposure of his clumsy lies. 5 days ago, I came to the hospital and saw you rushing in with her in your arms, admitting in front of the doctor that you two are a couple. Yesterday, you said you were going on a business trip, but instead, you went to the school and were seen cuddling with Lu Man. He Sui, I'm not blind, I can see. If you had simply admitted it, I might have respected you more, but instead, you fabricate so many lies, pinning baseless accusations on me, calling me malicious and bad. Don't you think that's despicable? Saying this, I felt somewhat sad. The person I once loved so deeply, who could have died for me, who could have lived in melancholy for a lifetime, in the end. Without those hindrances and stumbling blocks, our feelings seem worthless. Between parting in life and death, one can't have it all. Maybe I'm just as those classmates used to say, born under an unlucky star, and thus doomed to unhappiness. I tried to control my emotions and keep a calm appearance. He Sui, it has come to this point. What's the use of continuing to hide the truth? Perhaps my words were too straightforward. He Sui, who had been vehemently denying everything, finally fell silent. He knows in his heart whether I am lying or deceiving him. He looked up at me, his arrogance subdued, his face filled with emotion and guilt. He opened his mouth to explain, but I stopped him first. I don't want this to get uglier. Since it has come to this, let's get a divorce. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw Lu Man laughing. He Sui actually hesitated and seemed incredulous. Wen Qian, we've known each other for so many years. Do you really want a divorce just like that? Don't you have a heart? What else? I found it ridiculous. Otherwise, should I just keep our marriage, while you keep a mistress outside? Maybe when she gets tired of you, you'll find someone new. And me, I should just sit at home waiting for you, crying every day. Would that make me a person with a heart? After saying this, I made one last request. in this marriage, you are the one at fault, so you must leave with nothing. Do you have a problem with that? I'm not foolish. What's gone is gone, but the savings we've built up over the years, the comfortable life we've finally achieved, I can't just hand that over too. How could this be possible? Lu Man objected without thinking, holding tightly to Yi Sui's hand, then began to stir the pot. Sui Chao, after all these years of hard work, how can you give all your money to someone else? How are we supposed to live after that? I laughed. Didn't you fall for him because he's good at making money? If that's the case, then why don't you start from scratch with him, or do you just want to reap the benefits without going through the struggle? Putting someone on a pedestal like this makes it hard for them to step down without losing face. Even if they feel irritated, they have no choice but to grit their teeth and agree, just like now. Lu Man gritted her teeth and sneered, I love Yi Sui Chao the person, not his money. Even if he ends up with nothing, I'm willing to support him in making a comeback. It's just heartbreaking and feels so undeserved that he ended up marrying a woman like you who only cares about money. Seeing money and opening your eyes is still better than deceiving yourself and others, I responded softly, then took out my phone from my pocket and played the video I recorded yesterday. Before coming to the hospital yesterday, I made a point to get a video from one of the onlooking students. The video was comprehensive, documenting the entire incident. I played the video directly for them. My demands are only two: first, to divorce Yi Sui Chao; second, for Yi Sui Chao to leave without taking anything. If these demands are not met, I cannot guarantee where this video will end up. Pushed to this point, Lu Man became somewhat uncontrollable, reaching out to snatch my phone, but I dodged her in time. Lu Man, since you did it, you must be brave enough to face the consequences. Don't think about using excuses later on. We're both journalism students. We know how powerful words can be. We also know that even without verification, enough voices can crush someone. Moreover, you both know very well whether you have done something against morals, don't you? It wasn't a threat, it was a fact, their fault, with the video in hand. Even if just for Lu Man's reputation, Yi Sui Chao had no choice but to compromise and apply for a divorce at the Civil Affairs Office. As expected, there was a 30-day cooling-off period. Yi Sui Chao, I don't care if you choose to wander or stay with another woman. From today on, the house we lived in is mine, and you have no part in it. After these 30 days, we'll be divorced, and I don't want any contact ever again. Let's act as if we never knew each other. I've never been one to cling to my ex or keep in touch after a breakup. Once I decide to cut ties, it's for life, never to see each other again. Yi Sui Chao didn't respond immediately. He glanced at Lu Man, who was still waiting in the car, his expression complex. Qian, does it really have to be this way? He spoke with a sad tone, as if the wrongdoer was me. It was you who cheated, and now you ask me this. Don't you find yourself too hypocritical? I would have respected the house we lived in is mine, and you have no part in it. After these 30 days, we'll be divorced, and I don't want any contact ever again. Let's act as if we never knew each other. I've never been one to cling to my ex or keep in touch after a breakup. Once I decide to cut ties, it's for life, never to see each other again. Yi Sui Chao didn't respond immediately. He glanced at Lu Man, who was still waiting in the car, his expression complex. Qian, does it really have to be this way? He spoke with a sad tone, as if the wrongdoer was me. It was you who cheated, and now you ask me this. Don't you find yourself too hypocritical? I would have respected him more if he had openly admitted to falling in love with Lu Man and agreed to leave everything behind, never to see me again. That way, at least he'd be straightforward about his feelings. But now, I only felt more disappointed. Perhaps that summer when I saw him being bullied, I shouldn't have helped, only to end up sacrificing myself. After parting unhappily at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Office, I didn't go home. Instead, I checked into a hotel, planning to stay for a month, and hired a caretaker. Having just had a miscarriage, even with a strong constitution, I needed proper rest. The hotel allowed cooking, and the caretaker would come 3 times a day to prepare meals and clean. I spent my days lying in bed, browsing my phone, looking at landscapes from around the world, reawakening my long silent heart. If I had never met Yi Sui Chao, I should be traveling the world, seeing every mountain, river, and stream. Rather than mourning my lost love in a hotel room, she didn't persist too much but wanted to make her presence felt around me. So she added me on WeChat using a secondary account without revealing her identity directly. However, my intuition told me that this suggested yet unfamiliar account must belong to her. Moments on WeChat, June 24th, He wasn't in high spirits today, but with me by his side, he managed to smile. Photo, a half-smiling face, June 25th, the weather was great today. I convinced him to take me to the amusement park. He admitted he was a bit scared of heights, but I confidently assured him that I could protect him. It felt great to be able to protect the one I love. Photo, a carousel with us making heart shapes together, June 26th. It drizzled a bit, so we stayed in bed all day and watched a bunch of movies. Photo, a messy bed, July 24th. Everything ends tomorrow. After that, it will just be us, no one else. Photo, a victory sign, sitting on the couch. I took screenshots of these 20+ moments and saved them all. When I got to the last one, I paused, couldn't help but zoom in on the photo, and clearly saw the layout of the room behind her. It suddenly struck me as ridiculous. Hisui and I had chosen every brick and tile of that home together, not to mention the familiar sofa and the furniture I had carefully selected. No one knew it better than I did. At this moment, Lu Man was lying on my couch, sleeping where I once slept. It was nauseating. I ran out of bed barefoot, covering my mouth, and rushed to the bathroom to throw up, but nothing came out, just the discomfort of dry heaving. Tomorrow would be the day I could finally get a divorce, so I didn't make a scene but waited for dawn, waiting for the encounter in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Hisui was punctual. He wore a white shirt today and his hair was meticulously styled, clearly prepared for the occasion. I sneered, dressing so formally. Too bad divorce and marriage can't happen on the same day. My sarcastic tone made passers-by glance over. Hisui pursed his lips, staring at me for a long while until I walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau. Then, he suddenly called out to me, "Chan-chan." I paused, and he continued, "I never wanted a divorce. How ridiculous. He betrays me and then says he doesn't want a divorce. Does he expect to have it all his way?" Hisui strode up to me, earnestly saying, "We've been together since high school, supporting each other all these years. I truly love you." Regarding Man, I don't know how to explain it to you. It's an obsession that has seeped into my bones. If I don't act on it, it leaves me restless and sleepless. Chan, you haven't experienced this helplessness, this obsession. You don't understand how I feel. No, I understand. I've seen his helplessness, known his obsessions. That's why I was willing to give up my dreams, to cut off my own wings, just to stay by his side, guarding the peaceful happiness he desired most, to be the perfect wife in his heart. But what was the result? I couldn't help but close my eyes. Perhaps there was still a trace of malice in my heart. The conversation about past lives has become increasingly clear to Hisui Chao. He is starting to match many details and might soon remember everything. But what would the scene look like when he realizes the person he loves is not the one beside him, considering what has been said today? I am curious and waiting for that day to arrive. However, I must first hold my ground, for I need to divorce first, and without the legal status of marriage, I will simply be myself. The divorce procedure wasn't complicated. In no time, I had the divorce certificate in hand, freeing myself from the identity of Hisui Chao's wife. Leaving the Civil Affairs office, I directly got into Hisui Chao's car. He was startled, and I looked at him and said, "I want to go back to the house we used to live in." "Aren't you going there too?" All the property was agreed to be mine, including that house. However, he had let Lu Man move in while I was away. Seeing my discovery, Hisui Chao quickly explained. Man had some conflicts with her roommates these past few days. Her family is out of town, and she, being young and without much money, couldn't afford a hotel. Since you weren't coming home for a while, I thought it'd be okay for her to stay there temporarily. I even reminded her to pack up her things and return to school today. He said this so naturally, not seeing anything wrong with the situation. If I would have been upset about this in the past, now, it was anger after disappointment, intense anger. I couldn't help but rub my eyes. Perhaps I was blind before, having fallen in love with someone I shouldn't have, or maybe being reborn wasn't about fixing past regrets but to show me that my relationship with Hisui Chao was doomed to parting by death or separation, never to be fully realized, so I shouldn't force it. Thus, I didn't speak but followed him back to the house. I no longer wanted to call it a home. When I rang the doorbell, Lu Man came running barefoot to open the door, wearing my pajamas. She was even holding my favorite doll, appearing at the door with a playful expression. "Sui Chao, you're back." But before she could finish, she saw me standing behind him. She was startled and retorted, "What are you doing here?" According to the divorce agreement, Hisui Chao left with nothing. This house naturally belongs to me, so she was intruding. Hearing this, Lu Manman's eyes teared up immediately, and she looked timidly at Sui Chao, quickly starting to cry. Sui Chao. I've talked to my roommates. They still don't want me back at school. I have nowhere else to go. If I can't stay here a bit longer, I'll really be left homeless. All of Sui Chao's assets, including several properties we owned together, were now in my name. He had nothing, and had even rented a place with his salary paid in advance, but it surely wasn't as comfortable as this house. Lu Manman was trying to argue for her significance right in front of me, as if that would prove her importance. Just like now, Sui Chao looked at her, his eyes wavering, but ultimately he couldn't help but say to me, Qian, I've given you all the money and houses, but she has nowhere to go. Could you let her stay a few more days? Just a few days. Without a second thought, I immediately agreed. My straightforward response took Sui and Lu Manman by surprise, but I didn't do anything else. I just went back to my bedroom, claiming I needed to take some important documents, and then left the room under their watchful eyes, calm and composed. After that, I went to Lu Manman's university. It was also my alma mater. Familiar with the place, I knew when the office was busiest and when classmates would likely appear. I brought with me the video I had obtained that day, and also, after returning to my room earlier, I had secretly installed a camera. Over the past hour, they had been coming in and out of the room, embracing and kissing. The evidence was overwhelming. Yet I said nothing, just played the video on my phone on loop. Then I sat in a chair, crying silently. The office was bustling, and students frequently came to see the counselor or handle paperwork. At those moments, I would lift my phone higher to make sure everyone could see. Oh, and there was the ultrasound report and the proof of my miscarriage. I had clearly marked the dates. Every single piece of evidence was undeniable. When I got to the airport, Sui called me. As soon as I answered, I heard his roaring voice. Qian, I never thought you could be such a venomous woman. You had promised me that as long as I agreed to leave everything behind, you wouldn't release that video. Yet, you went straight to Manman's school and ruined her reputation. You're a woman yourself. You know how important reputation is to a woman. Don't you think you're being too harsh? And to install cameras in the room, your actions constitute an invasion of privacy, a violation of mine and Manman's rights to our images. According to the law, I can sue you. And, Qian, you've driven Manman to the brink of suicide by jumping into the river. Do you know that, if you have even a shred of decency left, go back to the school now and clarify things, claim it was all a misunderstanding, and help restore her reputation. Otherwise, I will call the police. I rubbed my ears. His yelling had been loud and painful. I told him, you've already signed the divorce papers. According to the law, that house is mine, so what's wrong with installing surveillance in my own home? You couldn't resist being affectionate in what used to be my bedroom. I happened to see it, and naturally, I had to seek an explanation from her school, didn't I? Also, I did promise you before, but I indeed changed my mind. What can you do about it? Call the police. Go ahead, Sui. Don't tell me, with all your education, you can't see right from wrong. If you call the police, who do you think will end up embarrassed? I think you know that better. In this relationship, I am not at fault, and I bear no responsibility for it. But Sui, you have completely shattered the love I once had for you in my heart. So I made that call. Hello, I need to send an express SF shipment, one that can arrive today. Regarding the items, I have divided them into 2 parts and had already placed them at the courier station. One part was sent to Sui Chao, containing 2 documents, a medical record confirming a pregnancy and another documenting a miscarriage. I have clearly marked the dates on them, which I believe he remembers. The other part, which is more significant, contains a USB drive sent to Sui Chao's rival at the same company. After that, I turned off my phone, packed my luggage, and went to another city. I thought about it for a long time. The bond with Sui Chao deepened because of that flood. Similarly, in my previous life as a spirit, I stayed by Sui Chao's side and remembered most of what happened in the following years. For instance, in 2 months, this city will experience heavy rainfall followed by a major flood, though not as severe as the one 5 years ago. Still, it will cause considerable damage, collapsing houses, and resulting in deaths. Knowing the time and place, I came here and wrote many anonymous letters, ensuring my own safety, and sent them to the local emergency management bureau. I researched extensively and wrote the letters formally, suggesting preemptive warnings and precautions, advising the evacuation of residents to minimize casualties. In short, I did my utmost to save those people, and I never left. During this time, He Sui Chow called me many times, but I did not answer. I didn't read any of his messages either. After so many years together, understanding each other's personalities well. The package I sent the day I left was enough to leave him with a lifetime of guilt. The child that was once eagerly anticipated, the day she was discovered, her father was with another woman, and the day she left, her father also abandoned her mother, taking another woman with him. So, guilt, a troubled conscience indeed. He called and repeatedly said sorry in his messages, ultimately to make himself feel better. And why should I give him that chance? I am somewhat spiteful. Unable to learn forgiveness, only wishing that he is unhappy for the rest of his life. But I never expected that there would come a day when we would meet again. On the day of the flood outbreak, official evacuations had already been arranged, yet some people refused to leave, needing help. I used my memories from a past life to locate those who had been trapped for a long time. I went days and nights without sleep. Just when I thought it was almost over, I realized the last person I saved was He Sui Chow. He was clinging to a piece of driftwood, having swallowed several mouthfuls of water, continually calling for help. He was also holding a child, who wore a blue dress and clung tightly around his neck, crying in fear. I am somewhat spiteful and wanted to ignore him, but I couldn't pretend not to see the child. Over these 5 years, I had learned to swim and picked up some life-saving skills these past few days, successfully rescuing them. The moment I was saved, He Sui embraced me tightly. Qian, I remember everything now. Outside the hospital, He Sui stood in front of me. He was still in his wet clothes, looking disheveled and miserable. Qian, when did you remember? I interrupted him before he could continue. He Sui opened his mouth, then couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. He said, I've been having dreams about it for a long time. Later, when I met Lu Man, I thought she was the girl in my dreams. Then, when we were about to divorce, I dreamt almost every night, but I couldn't make out the face in my dreams. After getting the divorce papers, Lu Man jumped into the river, and I jumped in after her. That night I got a high fever and was hospitalized. Then I saw the medical report you sent, and that night I dreamt a lot. I still couldn't see the face clearly, but I was sure the girl in my dreams wasn't Lu Man. Later, some memories slowly started to come back. This city was about to flood. I wasn't sure if it was real or just a dream, so I wanted to verify it, and indeed, I encountered the flood. When I was swept into the flood, I saw a little girl in a blue dress, much like the girl from my dreams. At that moment, I closed my eyes, and your image appeared in front of me. He paused, then suddenly laughed, as if mocking himself. Then, it was like a lifetime passed in my mind, and this lifetime, I begged for a long time, to finally achieve completeness, but in the end, I still lost it. By the end of his words, He Sui was in tears, his eyes a mix of resentment and sorrow as he tried to reach out to touch me, but I avoided his touch. He Sui, I also thought this lifetime was a chance given by fate for you, but I never imagined. Maybe this is fate telling me that separation by death is our destined outcome. In death, we remain in each other's memories as the beautiful images we once were. But now that we are both alive, the sacred feelings we once held have been degraded by you. He Sui, regret isn't enough to start over again. There's no future for us. When he claimed to be Lu Man's boyfriend, when I was pregnant, yet he found excuses to be with Lu Man when I had a miscarriage, and he was still with Lu Man. And many other nights that I didn't know about. Those disgusting nights are absolutely intolerable. Listening to my words, tears slid down He Sui's face as he shook his head incessantly. Qian, I just chose the wrong person. But from the beginning to the end, I loved you. So what? Should I just forgive your betrayal? But I couldn't do it. Couldn't be magnanimous and forgive him who once betrayed me. So I told him, because you betrayed me first, I want you to leave with nothing. And I even used your worst enemy to make you completely lose your job. All your efforts over the years are destroyed, and now you have nothing. This is your punishment, and all your current pain and regret. Every night for the rest of your life, you will remember them in your midnight dreams. He Sui, I will not forgive you, and neither will the child who was supposed to come into this world and leave. From now on, you will live a life of pain and regret. I plan to continue pursuing my own dreams, traveling the world. I've seen it all. With a hefty balance in my bank account, I have enough to support my dreams without struggling in place. Occasionally, I receive news from old acquaintances. He Sui Chow and Lu Man ultimately broke up. I caused a scene at her school, and given her already strained relationship with her roommate took advantage of the situation. The entire school ended up knowing about it, and it even became a hot topic in our city. The high level of discussion led to Lu Man being persuaded to leave the school and return to her hometown. The girl who once stayed up late night after night solving problems, striving to escape the mountains and change her fate, has returned to square one. As for Sui Chao, he had already made many enemies in the business world. Now, someone has seized the initiative, crushing him completely without any chance of a comeback. It's safe to say his chances of rising again are gone. Later, I vaguely heard news about him. It was said that he was targeted for revenge, with many needles stabbed into him, leaving him bleeding profusely and terrifying passers-by. After being rushed to the hospital, the rescue was too late. He became paralyzed in all limbs, a complete invalid. But none of this concerns me. I am in another country, in a place where spring is in bloom, watching the rivers flow and the mountains stand majestic. My life, perhaps, is just beginning.